Okay, I think we're going here. I think I have everything ready. Hello, everybody. Have all the lights on? I feel like I'm missing something. Uh, how's it going? Today I wanted to test out. I have my little test piece here. I wanted to test out the Rustable Iron magnetic filament from Proto-Pasta. I've had it for about 2 weeks now, and I've been wanting to print some stuff, and I really just haven't gotten a chance. And I want to do that today. And I also have some of these sewer pieces that we had printed out. I printed these out like months and months and months ago, and I want to finally throw some of these together. I have another one that's assembled. We're going to assemble this one and then move on to the one that I already have ready and primed. Do a little bit of painting. Use you see all my stuff back here. We're going to make a little bit of wash. Throw some acrylic paint on these. Try to finish them up. And what else? Oh, and then we're going to make the solution to rust the iron filament after we print these pieces out, and give that a go. It didn't turn out so incredibly great on this first try, but we're gonna give it another go with these other pieces I'm gonna print here. They're just real small. It should probably take less than 15 minutes. Well, it says 55 minutes, but we're going to let these print while we work on some of the other stuff and see how it goes. So I already have the files and everything ready on the printer. I just need to start it, and the filament is loaded. Like I said, this is the composite PLA. It is still a PLA, but it's the magnetic rustable iron from Proto-Pasta. And we'll be printing this at 200C on the nozzle, and you don't technically need the heat bed at all. And the test I did, I had like a standard like 55 or 60 degrees on the heat bed, and it really wasn't necessary. I think I got like a little too much adhesion with this filament. But I didn't want to turn it off. I do want to make sure we just have like a good print on the first go. So I think I have it at like 30 or 40 degrees Celsius on the heat bed. So we'll give that a try. And I did, anybody that watches me on a regular basis knows I've been more or less using the 0.25 and 0.3 millimeter nozzles. And with all of the metal or metallic, I guess you'd want to call them, composites from Proto-Pasta, they recommend you use at least a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. So I went ahead and threw the original older 0.4 millimeter nozzle that came with my my MK2 back in. So we'll be using that. So we'll go ahead and get this print started here, and then I guess I can show you the file. This is the file we're going to be printing here. These are some of the little tokens. They're approximately, like I have one right here. They're approximately 20 millimeters across, and they're just a fairly simple little gear shape, kind of a cool little print. And these will be used as tokens for the one war game that I play for my little robot guys. So it's very fitting that they're magnetic and rustable. It really couldn't be any more appropriate. So we'll go ahead and get this print started. Like I said, the filament is loaded, the bed is clean, file is on the printer, so we're just going to go ahead and start it here. And I know these are very small, but I have my little test piece here, and I have, again, these are like tiny, but these are some rare earth magnets that I'm holding, and you can see that it is magnetic, which is kind of cool. I guess I can do it over in this little camera, but they are magnetic. Which is kind of nifty that they managed to come up with something like that in a PLA. So there's probably some fun projects you could do with this. Now I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think you could make like refrigerator magnets out of this, because I don't think this is actually magnetic. I think it's just ferrous. So you still have to have like an actual magnet. Again, I could be wrong. I don't think I have anything just metal. Well, I do have my scraper here. But yeah. These themselves aren't magnetic. They're just ferrous. So, yeah, unfortunately you can't like just print out a magnet shape or something like that you could make like fridge magnets or like some novelty items with. That would be really cool, but it doesn't appear that you can do that with this. So what we're going to be doing in the meantime is I have a couple pieces here. Like I said, I have these sewer pieces, and I'll throw the links in the description of this video after we're finished. But these are from a company called Printable Scenery, and this was a very inexpensive set. I think this set of files was like $4, $4 or $5, and you get a bunch of these. Like this is an end piece that curves down into the ground, and then a couple supports. And what you end up doing with these is this is 3/4 inch PVC, and you just cut pieces to length, and then you can glue these together and make yourself little like sewer pipelines or whatever you'd want to use them for. I'm actually using them for a futuristic tabletop war game called War Machine, and these are just going to be kind of generic pipeline kind of terrain features that'll block line of sight and do a couple other things like within the game. So I guess I should bring the other camera over here, actually. Let me turn that off for a second. We'll bring that camera over here. Since we're actually going to be doing some kind of close-up work. Nothing too crazy. But I guess it makes more sense than showing the print. We'll get back to the print a little later. Get this kind of set up here. Yeah, there we go. But you can see these are just little sewer pieces. They're kind of gothic. They have skulls and some bones and stuff on them. But regular PVC pipe. I cut it with a chop saw, so the ends are relatively square. Hopefully it's good enough for everything to work out okay. We're going to check the printer here. Okay, I just wanted to adjust that first layer. It seems to be a little bit different with that that magnetic iron filament for some reason. It extrudes a little bit differently than normal PLA. Did I already print the baby Groot? No, I did not. No, I haven't printed that. I've seen a bunch of people, seen a whole bunch of people printing that. And a lot of those prints I end up like not printing. I just kind of live vicariously through all the people in some of the forums and stuff that print them. But all I have here is a little square of 220 grit sandpaper. And on pieces like these, like you see we have these big rounded areas and stuff. We're just going to kind of like haphazardly and aggressively sand this to get rid of as much of the layer lines as we can on these big flat areas. As you can see, the layer lines aren't bad, but a little bit of sanding like this really goes a long way. When you have big, like, really visible areas like this. And you can see once we start the sanding, you can see there's just the most minor inconsistencies in your layers can kind of become super obvious once you paint a piece. So we'll just scuff this up. Try to take the high points down on any of these layer lines. And it'll really smooth the piece up once we have it painted. Make it look quite a bit better. Like if we do two of these side by side, and you'd sand one and not the other, there'd be a pretty significant difference in areas like these. And don't have to get too crazy. Just smooth it up a bit. Try to get down there in the creases and stuff. There we go. Nothing crazy. But you see, we just want to get those big, super visible areas a little smoother than they'd otherwise be, since we're going to paint it. And same with some of this strapping across the top. We'll just quickly go over this. Try to smooth it out. Essentially any of these flat areas. In this area here, we're actually going to be gluing to. So we're just going to rough it up a little bit to make sure we get good adhesion with our super glue. I broke the nozzle on my super glue this morning. The lid kind of adhered to the tip, and I was trying to open it, and the whole thing kind of snapped off. Same with any of these like surfaces here. We'll just kind of lightly brush across those big broad areas and smooth it out a little bit. Again, nothing too crazy. This print's fairly clean, so I don't really need to spend too much time doing this. Again, like I guess you'd consider that like the foreheads of these skulls. Just kind of take the corner, pull it down across, smooth it out a little bit. This is like any plastic though. If you do sand it, especially like on edges, you want to make sure you don't leave any little burrs. So I think that's sufficient for that piece. Just hit the big areas. We'll do the same with this. We'll hit this strapping here. Hit the faces of the skulls a little bit. Smooth it up. What's the price on the iron filament? What I'm printing with now is actually a sample. Proto-Pasta is pretty good for having samples in their store, and I think it is a little pricey. I think the sample was $4 or $6, and then about that again for shipping. And I think it's let's go ahead and check together here. We can just go to their site and have a look. Let me get their site open. Okay, so here we are. Here's Proto-Pasta's site, and this is their composite PLA section. And here we have, you see they have the polishable stainless steel, which is kind of cool. And then we're actually printing with the magnetic rustable iron, and the 1.75. I think I got 50 grams, which isn't a whole lot, but I just wanted to do some testing with some smaller pieces. Is $4.50 US, and I think, like I said, I think it's about that again for shipping. So for $8 to $10, I think it ended up being for this 50 grams. And you can see they offer it in all kinds of, or maybe I got 125 grams. I honestly don't recall, and the package doesn't say. But a full, there you go. There's a 2 kilogram roll is $140, and about $30 for 500 grams. So you're probably looking at like since 1 kilogram is the standard, what you're probably looking at $60 a kilogram, I would imagine, with bulk pricing. Well, I guess it'd be closer to 70. About $70 a kilogram, which is not cheap, but you can see you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. With a little bit of sanding afterwards, and then using the rusting solution that we're going to make here after this print's finished. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And you see you get free shipping over $59, which is kind of a weird price point for free shipping, but they do offer that, which is kind of nice. So again, we got our big piece kind of roughed up, and we're going to continue with this one. Again, we're going to be gluing on both of these flat surfaces, so we're going to rough those up just to make sure our glue adheres well. If any of you guys have done any projects with PLA, super glue adheres pretty damn well to basically every PLA I've printed with, so it really isn't too much of an issue, but it doesn't hurt to take a few moments and do a little prep work like this. And again, just any big flat areas, just hit it lightly, smooth it out a little bit. Goes a long way. So there's that piece, and then this is our end cap that you can see has like a ship kind of hatch on it with a turn wheel and stuff. And again, we're just going to get some of these big flat areas that are going to be visible and kind of smooth them out. All this heavy strapping, we'll actually save a little bit of time. We'll say that this one's going to be on the top, so we won't even bother with the bottom one. And just smooth out those layer lines a little bit. I think these were all printed in the. This is one of the first filaments that I actually bought after I used up most of the roll that came with my printer. This was the Atomic Filaments Gunmetal PLA, and it was okay. Like I like Atomic because they are like a U.S. company, and they're a relatively small outfit. So it was kind of cool to be able to support them, and the PLA printed just fine. It took me a little while to find the right temperature for this stuff. I've said that before. This dark PLA kind of liked a little bit hotter temperature than most of the other PLA I've printed with. And here I just have a brush, and we're just going to go over these quick and get as much of that dust and stuff as we can. And I don't know if you can see on this, sanding that left a little bit of kind of a burr on the edge, and you want to make sure you get some of that stuff, because it'll look kind of funny if we'd go ahead and prime that and leave that edge there. Because it'll stick out really bad once we do our painting. So I'll just kind of round this edge over and get rid of all that. And again, just get rid of all that PLA dust. We'll do all these pieces. Alright, so those are all ready. And like I said, this is a 3/4 inch PVC. Nothing too special. There's a number of ways you can cut this. You can use a hacksaw. I have a big electric chop saw that I use to try to get as square of an edge as I could. Because we're going to be, lining these up. And if they'd end up being like crooked or something, it's going to be kind of obvious and kind of look bad. So after you cut it, we're just going to take this same sandpaper and smooth this edge up. So we get... you actually just like put it on your table and rub it like that. Is an easy way to go about it. And we'll do both sides. And we'll do our other piece. And then we'll again just kind of round the edge over so we don't have any weird burrs or pieces sticking up when we go to paint this. Oh, looks like we have a little bit of a inconsistency in our cut there. Just want to smooth that out so it's nice and flush on this side. And then we'll round the edges on this piece too. Alright, and now we're going to glue, so we want to get much of this dust out of here as we can. We got dust on our other pieces again. The other pieces I used 2-part epoxy on. This kind of stuff. This stuff is really inexpensive at like Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depots and home improvement stores. But it's a little tough. Like when I did these 2 pieces on the other set that I did, it's called 5-minute epoxy, but I ended up having to like sit and hold this for almost 10 minutes because it just kept wanting to like drift. So I would ultimately recommend that you use this and take the little bit of extra time because you're going to get a really strong bond with a 2-part epoxy like this. And once you have your pieces all together, you know, you could drop this 4 feet onto the floor and it's not going to come apart. You'll probably chip your paint, but the pieces are not going to break apart if you 2-part epoxy them. What we're going to do for the sake of convenience is just use regular old super glue. This will hold relatively well, but I would suspect that if you did later drop this, there's a good chance, just because super glue is kind of like a brittle bond, I think there's a relatively decent chance that a piece like this would break if you would jar it too much. So we're going to use this right now just to keep things moving along, but like I said, I would ultimately recommend using the 2-part epoxy, and we can go ahead and mix some up because it is really easy. Let's have a little piece of card paper here. We have our epoxy, and then I like to use Q-tips and cut the fuzzy part off. And it's a really cheap source of little sticks, like little craft sticks for mixing stuff. But the way you go about using this stuff is, you see it has 2 little chambers there, and when you push the plunger, a little bit will come out of each side. And then it's good practice to pull on your plunger a little bit to remove the pressure from those so they don't ooze, and then put your cap back on. Because if you don't, you might later run into problems with like your cap kind of adhering to the container. But I know you can't see, but we have two little squirts of stuff there, and you just kind of mix it together. This stuff is really easy to use. And then the way I was actually doing these pieces was just taking it and kind of rubbing it in that and then blotting off the excess. And the benefit of doing that is when you press these together, then it'll have like a little bead of excess glue around the edge of your pieces bonding, and it'll fill that gap. And in situations like this, when it dries, it ends up looking like a little weld line almost, which is kind of a nice little inadvertent side effect that you can sometimes run into when you're doing little projects like this. But yeah, that's all it takes to use this. And you wanted to use it, you see I mixed a relatively small amount. You don't want to make a lot of this stuff because like if you let this sit for not even 5 minutes, like if we'd come back to this in 3 or 4 minutes, it's going to be too stiff to really use. So you want to mix it in really small batches, do a couple pieces, hold them until they're kind of adhered, and then set them aside to dry. Like I said, it's called 5-minute epoxy, but I'd recommend letting it sit for as long as you can, maybe like an hour or so before you really like start handling the pieces. And then once your pieces have bonded, then mix another small batch and start doing some of your other joints. Like don't mix a whole bunch and try to do them all at once. You're gonna have a bad time. But anyway, we'll go ahead and super glue these. And you see I kind of broke the tip. This did have a nice tip on the end of this, because I love these containers, the Loctite super glue, because it has a real nice like narrow applicator, and generally has like a cap that goes on without any issues. But for some reason it kind of got stuck up in there. When I tried to twist it off, it kind of broke the whole thing. But we'll just put a moderate amount on here. And pop it in there. And we're going to, you see how that has letters on it? We're going to put those down. Just because they can sometimes be a little difficult to cover with primer without doing, you know, if you don't want to do a whole bunch of coats. And we'll center it. You can see the rivets and stuff. We'll try to center this as well as we can. And we'll just sit here and hold this for a minute. I'll catch up on chat here. Are we watching D&D thingies? Not technically. This isn't for D&D. A lot of this stuff that we're going to do today is applicable to essentially any kind of little project you might end up doing where you're going to do some assembly and like some painting with acrylics and stuff. So yeah, you could use a lot of this for Dungeons and Dragons terrain like we're going to be doing in the near future here, but a lot of this stuff's just kind of general assembly stuff with PLA. Yeah, and the nice thing with super glue is this is basically already bonded. PVC pipe, like PVC plastic and PLAs, bond very, very quickly with super glue. You can see this is, I wouldn't go jerking this around too much, but that's bonded pretty well already. And you see we've got the foundations for a little sewer pipe here. So we'll set that aside. And you can see we're going to have this piece with a support and then a little nub coming out the other side and then have our end hatch on here. So while this is drying, we can go ahead and glue our little end hatch. And we forgot to sand this area. This is an area we're going to glue. So let's take our sandpaper and just quickly rough that up a little bit. If you doing stuff like that is what makes the super glue adhere extremely quickly. And again, let's put a little super glue in here. Again, remember we kind of saved ourselves some time. We have a top and a bottom, and we didn't sand the bottom. And again, we're going to put that little bit of lettering towards the bottom, just so it doesn't force us to do a dozen coats of primer to cover it up. And again, we're going to center that as well as we can in this piece, so we have an equal border the whole way around. And just press it and hold it for a minute. And this piece is going to bond quick, since it's little. Yeah, that's on there. It is crazy how fast super glue bonds on certain materials. That is on there pretty good already. So we'll go ahead and glue this to our support piece here. Again, making sure our side we've kind of designated as the down side is pointed the right direction. And again, bit of super glue. You don't have to be terribly careful because this is kind of similar to the epoxy. Like if any of this squishes out and there's a little bit of a oh man, that bonds like instantly. So we're going to make sure we want to have this straight. Doesn't look bad. We're centered okay. And then hold it, because that wants to bond almost instantly. And you see we've got to try to keep our border fairly consistent around there. These pieces make you think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They would fit. I still have all my figures from when I was a kid. Okay. And that is on there. That is crazy how fast that glues. And you see, we're fairly straight as far as these flanges being perpendicular to the bottom here. So very good. And then we'll just go ahead and glue these pieces together. I could be wrong. Maybe super glue will be just fine for bonding things like this, because they really do weld together quite well. Now for this piece, I want to get something flat. I guess our maker box is as good as anything here. We're going to want to take a flat surface so we can make sure these are going to sit kind of reasonably flat on our tabletop. You don't want a piece that like wobbles all kind of wonky. And we'll just hold that for a second. Joe, how old are you? I'm 32, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was definitely a big part of my life. Like I said, I still, they're actually sitting right over here. I have all of my minis from when I was younger. I have all my little action figures and stuff. I never had any of the, like, super cool stuff. I do have, like, the smaller sewer set that had 2 levels and a couple sewer pieces and stuff, but I never had any of, like, the huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. Yeah, wow, that is bonded. That is pretty good. And these pieces, this is actually at 100% scale. This is a pretty beefy piece here. That's these files at 100%. And you see at 100%, they print out really nice. At this size, the layer lines aren't really an issue. But I think these are at about 65%. Just because it kind of fits the scale of the game that we're doing these for a little bit better. I don't think they're 50. I think they're like 60 or 65% size. But yeah, there we have it. There's our little sewer assembly. All we'd really have to do now is prime this. I've been using... This is a little bit more expensive than the cheap paints I usually buy, but this stuff works really well. And this is the Krylon Cover Max primer. Works good on plastic. And the thing I like about it is it's really kind of thick. It goes on a little thick, which I normally hate for stuff. But on things like this, I usually end up putting 2 coats on. The first coat's a little bit light, and then the second coat I usually put on as heavy as I can without getting drips and runs. And this isn't really like a filler primer. Like, you can actually buy that kind of stuff, but it kind of functions as that because it is kind of thick and it goes on kind of heavy. So like I said, I put the second coat on as heavy as I can without getting actual like runs in the paint. And it kind of helps cover up some of these the layer lines and stuff that you might have on some of your prints, which is kind of handy because you can kind of deal with those without having to do a bunch of sanding and stuff. So what I have here is one that, yeah, that stuff really does. You can see there's almost no layer lines. There's a little bit of striation here, but it's really smooth. It doesn't really strike you as like layer lines from 3D printing. But here's one that I assembled with the epoxy, and you can see on those skull faces and stuff, the primer really helps smooth them out, and especially in like the areas where we didn't do any sanding. You see I was a little, there's a little bit of half-assery here with the priming. I didn't actually turn this upside down, but this will never essentially move once it's on the table. And you see, I didn't have another one for this piece, but this one actually has a little like control panel on the pipe there. So you can see it's a cool little piece for the table. Just kind of a generic, kind of sewery, maybe a part of a chemical plant or something. But cool little pieces. And like I said, the file set for this that I'll link in this video later was only, I think, $4.95, and it came with, I can actually show you the files that it came with here. These are the tokens we were printing. This was the Gothic pipeline, and we'll actually pull all of these in, okay? So this is all the files from the set, and you see we have the we have this curved piece on the end here that we were using, and we have the support piece that we were using, and then there's like the end cap with the kind of turn wheel valve thing. Here's the little control panel that's on this one. There's a different kind of little control panel here that has like another like valve wheel on it. And then there's a couple other pieces. Like this is a kind of like a T-joint that you can do like more complex things with. And then there's a big support here where like if you take a couple of these big supports, like maybe 3 or 4 of them in a line with little sections of pipe between them, there's also this like graded walkway that you can put over top, like a little service area or something. So it's a cool little set of files. So what we're actually going to do is very, very quickly throw some paint on this. And we're just going to be using some really inexpensive paint. We're going to use a little bit more of this. I like using this stuff. This is just like poster board, basically. So we'll cut ourselves... I guess we can just leave that piece, and we'll have a second piece here ready if we need it. We've got a really inexpensive, again from Walmart or any big box store. I think a set like this is $3 to $5 for these gold Tacklon. I don't know what the hell that material is, but that's what the bristles on these are made out of. Really inexpensive, great for like crafts and crap like this. And again, we're going to be using some really inexpensive paint. This is some antique copper. I think this stuff is like $1.25 for a container like this, and a container like this will last you a long time. But we're gonna keep this really subdued and gothic. We're actually not going to do anything to the gray pipe. We're gonna leave that gray. We're gonna hit most of these supports and stuff with this antique copper. I think the only other parts we're going to really do a different color on are these skulls here, and maybe the skull on this. We're going to pick out in like an off-white / bone color, and then we're going to mix up with some other acrylic paints. We're going to mix up like a really simple, inexpensive wash and wash the whole thing, which will kind of like age it and weather it and make it look pretty sweet. But this is going to be an exercise in speed painting. So we're just going to squirt a big glob of this out here. My wife hates when I use these. She got these at a local winery. They're little like sampling glasses, but they're like perfect for painting with, and I use them all the time. Which I said she hates, so I always try to like use them and then clean them and put them back before she really notices. But we're just gonna have a little bit of water there, because if you didn't know, acrylic paints are water-based. That's what is so nice about acrylic paints, is you can actually thin them with water instead of like oils that you need kind of like special stuff. So we're just going to moisten our brush. This one actually had a little bit of paint from another project in it. Wash that out. Get the bulk of the water off. Get some paint on our brush. And like I said, we're going to be really heavy-handed with this. These aren't super important pieces. We don't want to paint like an idiot and get paint everywhere. But for the most part, we're going to be really fast. We just want to cover this with paint. So we're going to... we'll do this part around the pipe first, because it's one of the few areas we kind of have to be careful. Because this is going to be one of the seams. I actually can't see all that well. This is one of the areas where our colors are going to butt up against each other. So we want this line to look reasonable. But the nice thing about using a wash after you paint something is that it's kind of forgiving. Because in a seam like this, where there's a crack between the colors, it's going to kind of settle in there and darken that area and kind of hide the transition. So... kind of nice. we just want to do everything in our power to not get any paint on the gray pipe, because I don't actually have a color to match that to touch it up. So we're not going to get super close to it. All right. So we got that. You can kind of see, I know it's a little tough to see, but you can see we got that banding around the pipe, and that's the area where we have to be careful. So the rest of this, we're just kind of slop paint on it. And we want to make sure we get in the cracks as much as we can, but mostly just want to get it done. Like a lot of tabletop terrain is like that. That if you want to, you can take your time and do like a really nice job, but for the most part, it's not really that critical. Especially these pieces. I'm just going to be donating these to my local hobby shop. We have a War Machine tournament going on, and this will just be another little piece of terrain we can throw on the table. Kind of spice things up. So, and that's some of you guys that have 3D printers. I found this is kind of a cool way to kind of get the word out that you have a 3D printer. If you are looking to do work for anybody, doing a couple little projects like this and donating them to people, because this might take us, I don't know, maybe hour and a half to do a piece like this. It's not counting printing time. I just mean like time actually like sitting here doing kind of crafty hobby kind of stuff. It's time well spent, because this will just like continue to sort of advertise for you, because like people at our shop, they're going to ask like, oh my, where did that come from? And then guys at the shop will be like, Dick printed this out on his 3D printer. So we'll probably just probably won't do all these. I'll probably do this support and maybe the end cap, and that way I can wash that area, and we can see like the general effect this is going to have and how this will look. Because I actually haven't painted one of these before, so I'll be kind of figuring out or seeing what it looks like for the first time also. But I imagine this will look kind of cool. It'll look kind of, like I said, kind of subdued, look kind of antique-y. Because when we make our wash, it's going to be primarily a black acrylic, but we're also going to throw some like brown and green in there. Give it kind of like a grimy, weathered look. But you could probably just paint this this kind of antique copper on here and be done with it, honestly. And it would look, decent. But if you've ever done painting with washes, they are almost magical. How they kind of just improve the overall appearance of whatever you've painted. It's like when you paint miniatures for, whether it's D&D or Warhammer or anything like that. If you can get a reasonable looking paint job on there, just painting, and then you wash it, people are going to be like, wow, you're really good at painting. And you don't have to be. It's just kind of like a trick. Like I said, it almost feels like magic. Because you can take like kind of a mediocre looking paint job, and with the right color washes and stuff, it'll take a mediocre paint job and make it look like a pretty good paint job. And it doesn't take a whole lot of skill. Again, we're just being a little careful on this this line here around the pipe, because it is one of the areas where our colors are going to butt up against each other. So the cleaner this line is, the better this piece will look overall. But I'm one of those guys, like I'm not terrible at painting, and I love having painted stuff, but I hate painting. I really do. Like, I'm so impatient. you can always tell when I start painting something, it'll be really nice. And then towards like the end, it looks kind of bad because I'm really impatient. Oh, let's address our filament here. I don't generally do anything. I still haven't printed out a spool for my sample rolls yet. Been kind of putting that off. So I know it's tough to see back there, but I just have the roll on like a little piece of PVC. So if you do that, you have to keep an eye on it because it can kind of bind up occasionally. Richard the Master 3D Printer and Dick the Painter. Yeah, like, I know my name's Nillabean here on YouTube, but all my friends call me Dick. I was actually talking to a friend the other day about nicknames. A lot of my friends actually call me Face. That came from, like, in elementary school and middle school, everybody called me Dick just because it was kind of an excuse to say a bad word without getting in trouble. And then one of my close friends started calling me Dick Face, and he called me that through like all of high school. And then that slowly transitioned into just Face. So he still calls me that most of the time. And people usually think that's kind of weird. Alright, so we're probably, I'd say 60% done with this piece. This support here. And these under areas we can just really kind of slop the paint on. Because like areas like this, you can kind of be aggressive putting the paint on, making sure you get in all the little cracks and crevices and stuff. And then like there, we've got in all the cracks and crevices, and then just go back and pull the excess paint off. And if you do it like that, you can't really tell that you kind of painted it like a madman in the first place. If you kind of smooth everything back out. But painting is really cool. It's just entirely dependent on how much time you feel like spending on something. It's kind of just like the inking. It's more about knowing tricks than it is really being like talented. Because like this, if we just kind of slop our colors on here, we could stop there and it would look okay. Or we can ink it and it'll look quite a bit better. And we could stop there and it would look pretty good. And then after you ink it and allow that to dry, you can go back over top of everything again with what's called dry brushing. Like, we're using kind of like a dark copper color here. After we ink this, you could go back again with a slightly lighter copper color. And dry brushing is just kind of like getting paint on your brush and then rubbing most of it off and lightly dragging across to pick up the highlights in a slightly lighter color. And it'll look even better yet. So if you're willing to put the time in, with a couple tricks like that, you can get some really, really surprisingly good results without being all that great of a painter. But one of the most important things is making sure you don't miss any little cracks or crevices in this first coat, because they will kind of stand out later. So that's why it's kind of handy to really like be aggressive when you're applying the paint on these base coats, so you don't end up like missing any little cracks or crevices. And then just making sure, like, after you've gotten it everywhere you want it, that you kind of like brush the excess paint off so it's not all lumpy and you get like a nice smooth coat. But I'd say we're about 75% done here, so we'll wrap this up. Again, just kind of jamming the paint in all the cracks. Especially like around these skulls and stuff, there's some deep crevices in there, and we just want to kind of jam the paint in. Like the eye sockets of the skull and stuff. Even though we're going to come back and paint this white again, it doesn't hurt to get this copper color in those cracks. That way we don't actually have to get the white and struggle with that like the whole way down in. And everything will still, as far as like the palette, everything will still look correct. Again, just go back, smooth everything over. Like all these flat surfaces, you want to kind of use like broad brush strokes, so you're not leaving any like brush lines or anything crazy in there. Alright, and then again, this area we'll just kind of slop paint on there. I know it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to like compromise between an angle that I can show in cam and actually see myself. Jam it in the cracks. Make sure we're covering everything. And then just like pick up most of that excess paint. You see, that's most of the base. I can't. There we go. See, we got most of the base, the front, the back. All we have left is this strapping across the top, and we've already done the kind of difficult lines. So this last bit will be pretty straightforward and easy. Our print is moving right along. It says it's 70% done already, so hopefully everything will time out correctly. We'll set this aside in front of the fan over there and give it a chance to dry. And in the meantime, we'll mix up our rusting solution for that iron PLA and see if we can get those little tokens to be all rusty. And when you're using acrylics, occasionally just like dip your brush in your water and mix it around in the area you're getting your paint from, and it'll just make it flow a little bit better. Because acrylics can get a little pasty when you have them sitting out for very long. And they're water soluble, so all it takes is a little bit of water to get them to flow okay again. All right, I'm going back and making sure I haven't missed any areas. But you see, it's pretty straightforward. We're just like making sure we get everything. Our transition lines are fairly clean. We didn't get any paint on our pipe, and we covered everything that I can tell. It's a little hard to see here. I don't know why, like, it's bright as hell in here, yet I'm, like, having trouble seeing. It's funny how that goes when you're painting. But, yeah, if you'd really want to, like I said, the sky's almost the limit with painting. Like, you see there's all kinds of rivets on here. Like, after we do everything we're going to do, you could come back with, like, a silver and just, like, touch the tips of those. And stuff like that, again, it's just kind of amazing the difference it can make when you're looking at a piece like this sitting on the table. Okay, so I think that's done. Oh, there's a spot I missed. I think that's good. We're about 75% done on our print. So we'll go ahead and do the end of this so we can just go ahead and wash the this whole end. And this piece we can really just we'll be a little bit careful on this edge here. I guess we can go ahead and do that first. Just get it up to the pipe without actually touching the pipe. Oh, I touched the pipe a little bit there. So we'll bring this paint line out a little bit farther down so it at least looks consistent. Alright, so our line's done. And now we can just make sure we cover everything. Pretty easy. Well, we got to do a little bit down here. Alright, now we're just going to slop paint on there and cover everything. And then we're done, we'll go back and smooth it out a little bit. And our print looks like we'll be done right about the same time, so this will work out okay. Did check the printer. Yeah, our filament is a little chaotic there. We'll grab that. Luckily, because the roll's so small, it's actually hard to get like an actual bind if you're keeping an eye on it. But yeah, that you do want to do that. That was only, I guess it has been almost an hour already. Holy crap. Alright, so we'll smooth some of these areas that we got covered out. Just so there's no globs or anything crazy, no runs. Runs look bad. You don't want runs when you paint. They stand out really, really bad. So if you spend time avoiding anything, avoid runs. They look terrible. They're a pretty good indicator that you are an amateur. Alright, did everybody... Yeah, see you guys. Thanks for the heads up. YouTube guy asked, is this one of the 3D printed pieces for tabletop? Yeah, at the beginning of the stream, we actually assembled another one of these. The pipe is actually a PVC pipe, but these supports, like this whole end, this piece, and this piece that are we're painting bronze, these were all 3D printed. So yes, sir, these are 3D printed terrain pieces. And we're almost finished here. We just got to cover this end cap. And you see there's a bunch of little crevices and stuff here you want to make sure you get. And we'll keep dipping our brush in water to keep the paint flowing nicely. That really helps keep your finish smooth. Alright, so I think we got everything covered. So we'll just come back and try to smooth out our finish. Especially in these round areas where if you leave brush strokes, it's going to be really obvious. So we'll just kind of go with the general flow of the shape. Get all the excess paint off. And I think that's pretty good. I think that doesn't look too bad. But you could see already, if you really didn't want to invest much time in this, Like a piece like this, obviously we need to do the other end and stuff in this little control panel. But if you pick your colors right, you could really get away with just stopping here. Honestly, you wouldn't really like. I don't know. I kind of want to. I do want to hit those with some white. I think that's going to really make a huge difference. Like little things like that. Like if we would go ahead and wash this, it would look all right, but nothing would really stand out on it. Which might be what you're going for. Like if you want this to really just kind of fade into the background of your terrain and stuff, you know, you might want to just leave it like this. But I think we are going to go back and hit this, the inside of this little skull area and stuff with some off-white. So I just got a phone call. I'm going to be running dungeon mastering, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be running an RPG soon that I've been working on with like a custom system. And the book for the system I'm using is about $90 because it's been out of print for a while and it was kind of a low-run book. Some of you guys might have heard of it before. It's called Basic Role Playing. It's from a company called Chaosium, and I think they started in like the late 70s, early 80s. Like the game RuneQuest is the system that came from. And the book is about $90, like I said. Which I cannot justify spending $90 on a book. Especially for a game. Like there are some books I could justify it for maybe, but for a game, not quite. But we actually have like a local print shop in town, and their prices are amazing. So, for $60... I got 3 copies of this book printed. It's spiral bound on a relatively heavy cardstock. Like it's a 400-page book. And how does it taste? For $60, I got 3 of these books printed. And I have 2 of them sold already. 2 of the 3 I've actually sold to other people who were interested in having copies for $35 a piece. So I'm up what? I'm up $10 on the deal and have a nicer copy of the book than the actual official copy of the book because it's spiral bound so you can fold it back on itself. And the covers are heavier cardstock than the regular book comes with, and the pages are heavier stock. So that was a call from the printer, so that's available for pickup today. So I've been waiting on that. But yeah, this is again, this stuff is cheap. This is just a metallic, you see that's just a metallic acrylic, antique copper. Got this at Walmart. I think it was like $1 or $1.25 for a container of that. We used almost none of it. Like there's 2 ounces here. We probably used less than 1/10 of an ounce. So like if you had stuff like this to do, you could do quite a few of these with one of these $1 tubes of paint. I'm going to set this over in front of the fan. We'll go ahead and mix up the wash that we're going to use. I'm going to dump the water out of here. Now, I've never actually used this technique to make wash, but I was watching some videos on it, and it seems to work fairly well. If this print works, it's pure luck. No, it'll be all right. Like I said, there's only a tiny little roll of sample spool there, and it is kind of slinking off the thing, but it's not binding or anything, so it's really not an issue. I mean, I can adjust it if it's freaking you guys out. But no, I've done a ton of prints with these little sample spools like this, and I've never had any problems. The spools are so small that even if they do fall and kind of bind, there's not enough like windings on the spool to actually cause them to bind. They'll give. So no, the print's going fine. we're about 90% done. So we're kind of done with this copper for now, so we'll set that aside. Now for this wash, I've got like a dark gray, a fairly dark earth brown, and then a fairly dark green. And like I said, I've never actually used this technique for making washes before. But I was watching some videos the other day, and it seemed like a pretty decent method because some inks can be kind of expensive. Like, I have inks for doing, like, painting miniatures and stuff. But we're just going to mix, I don't know, equal parts of this. See, we got our brown. Oh, that gray's not quite as dark as I was hoping it was. We might have to throw some black in this. We've got some brown, some of our kind of medium gray. Yeah, we're definitely going to need some black in this. And a bit of kind of medium darkish green. So I'm going to grab some black here. And you see this black is, these are some of the old actual, like, I think these are Vallejo. These are Vallejo game color. And I actually don't have a lot of blacks. One of the reasons I didn't want to use it. And these things are like, I think these pots of paint are like 10 years old. So these are not in the best shape. But we'll throw some black in this to darken it up. And anytime you're doing stuff like this, the actual color that you get doesn't really matter. I mean, if you'd want to match several of these, you're either going to have to pay a lot of attention to like the ratios of the paint you use so you can match it, or like if we were going to do 3 or 4 of these sewer pieces, we'd want to get them all ready to wash. Like, we'd want to have them all painted up, all ready to go, and then wash them. Like, you can go ahead and mix this kind of willy-nilly, but then wash them all at the same time so they match. And either way works depending on what you're going to do. So we threw some black in there. Hopefully that'll darken that up enough. We're going to use one of our... Again, we're going to take our Q-tip. And just kind of cut the fuzzy part off. And now we've got a nice little stir stick. So we'll stir this up and see what kind of color we kind of end up with. This thing's kind of... I guess this thing's kind of thin for stirring. But there it's going. But a lot of times, like when I've painted stuff, sometimes things don't look like you might have necessarily wanted them to. But the cool thing is like if this ends up being kind of a weird color that I maybe wasn't expecting, go ahead and try it. Sometimes, like, a little bit of experimentation like this, you end up getting results that do look kind of odd, but in the long run end up being kind of cool because it doesn't end up being kind of samey. It's not what people might necessarily expect. Like, I'm going to be painting the dungeon tiles one of these weeks coming up here. I've got a moderate amount of them printed out, and I kind of want to paint them in big batches so they all do kind of match each other. But I'm kind of thinking of doing some odd colors because it'll just be kind of unique. Like, I've seen some other guys that do videos on terrain and stuff, and sometimes doing things that people don't expect kind of turns out to be kind of cool. Like, I think, like, my knee-jerk... The direction I'd want to go is like a knee-jerk is to paint, because they are stone dungeon tiles for the most part, is to paint them gray. But that's kind of boring. Like, I would imagine that 95% of people who are going to do those dungeon tiles are going to paint them freaking gray. So I'm kind of thinking of going like a greenish brown kind of color, and kind of like if you guys have seen Flock and stuff, like model railroad guys use that. But there you see we have kind of like a I know the light's kind of weird here, but we have kind of like a greenish gray brown kind of color, which isn't really. I guess it's funny to say that since I'm mixing gray, brown, and green, but this isn't exactly what I had in mind. But we're gonna go ahead and go with it. So we got our paint mixed. Now we're gonna put a bit of water in here, not a ton, and we're gonna thin this up and get it nice and thin. And then apparently the secret for making cheap washes like this, I think I do want to darken this up. I think I do. I need to get another thing of black here. And again, my pots are kind of gunked up here. And it looks like our print's finished. So we'll mix this up and let it sit to the side for a second while our piece dries over there in front of the fan. And we'll pull these prints off, take a look at them, and mix up our... this damn thing. I just stuck a needle through that and it's still clogged. Maybe my needle's too thin. Or not long enough, one or the other. It's got stuff on the end of it. But nothing's coming out. Okay, so we'll rip the tip off like the other one. Whatever. Alright, we'll darken that up. I don't mind the color, I just... like, washes generally should be fairly dark. It's the whole idea, is you want this this to settle in the cracks and crevices. And darken everything up. So, stir, stir, stir. Oh, that looks nice now. That's all, like, kind of grimy looking. Alright, I think we're going to need a good bit more water, because we want this to be nice and thin. We want our other color to really come through. We don't want this to actually paint the thing we put it on. And then, like I said, apparently the secret to this is like a drop or so of dishwashing liquid. So there's like 2 drops. And my understanding is that the dishwashing liquid breaks the surface tension of the paint and allows it to flow a lot better. So we might... I don't know what's going to happen. We might kind of ruin our piece, or this might be awesome. But we'll find out together. It smells nice in here now. Oh, you can see that's definitely kind of thin. It's kind of a muddy, kind of weird color. Maybe that'll help bring everything together. Let's put some of this antique copper in there too. Just a tiny little bit. Might give it like a metallic sheen. Just a tiny little bit of those metal flakes in there. It'll kind of fit, because that'll maybe make our pipe look a little metallic. I don't know. That's the cool thing to me about painting like small numbers of things like this, is you can just really kind of do whatever the hell you want. It doesn't really matter, because we're not going to have to match these to anything. These are kind of like a one-off. And like this wash, because I am going to do the other pieces, I'll just kind of set this aside and put a piece of like saran wrap over top of it. And then when I finish painting all the other pieces, like the one we assembled today, it's not painted yet, I'll go ahead and wash it all with this. So we should be good. Alright, so we'll set this aside. We'll do that last. Now that we've got our wash ready. Give our piece some more time to dry. And we've got our cool little tokens. I'm excited about those. Let me pop these off. Oh, these have such a cool feel to them. You can see they have kind of like a satiny. They almost feel like they're made out of graphite. They're quite a bit heavier than regular PLA, and I know you can't really hear that, but they kind of sound like they're stone almost. And I already love these, I gotta say. Because they're going to be tokens that like I stack up and set beside figures to represent different things. Yeah, I know this filament's a little bit expensive, but I already really dig these. That's a cool feeling. It's a very different feeling than if they were printed out of PLA. Yeah, these are going to be easy to sell to people. I can tell you that already. All right, so what we're going to do is first we'll get our mix ready. And I'm using another one of my wife's little things like I'm not supposed to. Everybody be quiet. Shh, don't tell her. And what we have here is vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, and salt. And the ratio is approximately 8-to-1. Like if you use 8 ounces of peroxide, we're going to use 1 ounce of vinegar, and then just a bit of sea salt. But we're just going to kind of eyeball this. So you can see we've got, I don't know, a little bit of peroxide in there. I'll put a little bit more. I would imagine the ratio for this isn't super critical. And then we're going to do a little bit of vinegar. I would guess that's about 8-to-1. We're just kind of ballparking this. And then a little bit of salt. All right, that's probably good. Guess we're going to find out. So we're going to make another little nifty stir stick. Chop the fuzzy part off. And swish this together, and we'll let it sit to the side. And then the thing about rusting these pieces is that you have to sand them a little bit. Which I want to do anyway, because it'll make them... like, the bottoms are obviously super flat, but then the tops, they're flat, but if you get two of the tops together, I don't know if you can really see that, they don't sandwich together perfectly. I mean, it's not really an issue, but if you can see there, I don't know if you can really see that. The cool thing about prints like this is, let me turn autofocus on for a minute. The cool thing is with these, if you can see that, I did concentric infill on the top, so it's like a nice spiral pattern, and it looks really great on round pieces like this, instead of having like the perimeter layers and then like a kind of crosshatch infill. This has like a nice circular infill, and it looks really, really nice on circular pieces like this. But anyway, we're gonna flatten this out on our table. And this, again, is just a piece of, I think, 220 grit. Yeah, 220 grit sandpaper. really common stuff. We're going to flatten out and just pretty aggressively sand all these. And you can see we're not actually hitting everywhere. There's some darker areas in there where we're not actually hitting with the sandpaper. I learned on my first test piece that we want to sand these until we are hitting the entire surface. Like there, that's a little better. See how the whole surface is light? We've actually sanded everything. We're going to want to do it till it gets like that. And then the back will take a lot less effort because it's already pretty flat. But there we go. Sanded the whole thing. Autofocus for the win. Pretty good. So there's our first one. We'll get rid of our dust. Do our second one. Just get pretty aggressive with it. Because pieces like these, it's actually cool if they look kind of rough and mistreated. It's kind of the whole idea if like we're rusting them. So yeah, just sand the shit out of them. Again, we just want to go until we're making sure that we're sanding like the entire surface and there's no kind of little areas that we're missing or anything. Oh, looks like there's like an area we're missing on the back, so we'll hit that again. There we go. Cool beans. And we'll go ahead and do all 12 of these as fast as I can here. And normally, like I have a glass sheet over here that I use as a flat surface, because this isn't the flattest surface conceivable, since I have a felt top on this table. But like I said, these aren't super critical. All right, you can definitely smell the vinegar in here. Not my favorite smell. So we'll, yeah, it looks like we don't have a perfectly flat surface, so it looks like we're missing the centers there. So I'm just going to go back and hit those kind of manually. Because as far as I understand, what we're actually doing by sanding this is the little bit of ferrous metal that's in here is a lot harder than the PLA base that it's in. So when we're sanding it, the PLA gives a lot more than the that little bit of ferrous. I guess it has like a ferrous powder in there. So what we're actually doing is sanding away the PLA, and then you can see this has kind of a metallic sheen. I mean, it's subtle, but it's definitely there. And we're just exposing as much of that metal powder, or I honestly don't know exactly how they do it, but I assume it has to have some metallic powder in there because it is magnetic, it is ferrous. Let me see if I can get something flat here. I was going to grab an NES, but I guess that's not ideal. Ah, screw it. Let's grab our glass sheet. That's probably the best way to go. I actually have the printer setting on this most of the time. Just because it's a nice flat surface for the printer to set on. Oh god, now our camera's on the fritz. Oh no. Oh no. Behave. There we... Oh, nope. This stinking thing. I think it's the extension cable that I have. Nobody move. Okay. It seems to be cooperating. All right, so we get our sandpaper on our flat surface now. And now we can really sand the hell out of these things. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that one's good. That one's good. I think we have 12 of these. We'll just do the first 6 for the sake of brevity. Yeah, it's like I said, I have like a USB extension on there, and I think that cable's a little finicky, unfortunately. There we go. But we're just using a circular motion here. Since they are round pieces, it'll just hide any of the sanding lines that we happen to put into the piece. But with anything like this, we are going to go back with a hobby knife, or maybe even just the sandpaper, and go back in some of those cracks. Because when you sand like this, you're going to be kind of flaring out the edges. And if it doesn't matter, you don't really have to do anything about it. But for these, I want these to look... I know they're going to be rusty and weathered looking, but I want the overall shape to be kind of clean. So we'll just round over some sandpaper and go back in these cracks then. Alright, so how many do we have? We have 5 here and 6 there. Did we miss? Am I missing one somewhere? I know I didn't. Oh, there it is. I dropped one. Yeah, we should have 12 of these. So we'll do these 6. We'll do 6 of them here. Again, just sanding the hell out of them. Luckily, it doesn't matter. You really... If anybody sanded PLA, you know you're not going to sand a hole in your PLA. PLA is a very hard material. It actually takes some really, really aggressive sandpaper to do a whole lot to it. Okay, so there we have those pieces. And then, like I said, I know you might not be able to see it, but we actually end up like flaring out the tops and bottoms, and it leaves a little bit of... It's not the worst. Maybe a fingernail is actually enough. But we just want to go in there and kind of get rid of that flare. Yeah, we'll use the sandpaper. So we're just kind of round it over like that to give us kind of a soft round shape, and just run it in there and clean those up a little bit. Ideally, we'd sand these inner areas too. Ooh. Maybe that's an autofocus issue. Maybe it would turn autofocus off. Huh, that's kind of weird. Yeah, that's kind of weird. That was an issue with the autofocus. So maybe that isn't a cable issue. Maybe it is. I gotta be honest, I kind of didn't think it was the case when mathematics said it doesn't like the glass, but I think it might have been the glass. That's kind of weird. Like I said, we'll go in here and just clean these edges up a little bit. If you'd really want to take the time, sanding these edges would be nice because it'll make them rust a little bit more in there. I guess we can do... Let's do one of these completely, and we'll see how much we can get it to rust. So we'll get all the cogs of this gear and try to expose as much of that ferrous metal as we can. It'll only take a minute here. Because it'll accomplish both things. We're going to clean that edge up and make it even more rustier. But there's so many, like, this is such a cool material. There's so many things you could do. Like, Christmas just passed. Like, you could make ornaments as gifts with this stuff and rust them up and make them look all antique. They'd be super cool gifts. Because some of these unique materials, like if you print something out in PLA, like I've already done that. I've printed stuff out in PLA and given it to people. And it looks like it's 3D printed. Even if you know the layer lines aren't bad and stuff, it's a hunk of plastic, ultimately. But some of these more specialized materials, they're just different. It's like I said, as soon as I had a couple of these in my hand and you hear them kind of clinking together, it's just a totally different experience. It's nothing like normal PLA or ABS or anything for that matter. It's a genuinely unique kind of like hand feel that they have. That's why when I ordered this, I also got some of the polishable stainless steel. We actually are going to use a knife. You can see there's kind of like a fuzzy burring around the edge there. So I'm just going to take a blade. It's over here. I have one of these like utility knives. I'm going to pop the blade out of this and just kind of run it along the edge. And get rid of that fuzziness. I know this is about the time that Aaron recommends the deburring tool. He's a big fan of the deburring tool. But this is a little small for that. But that's essentially what you need is a tiny little deburring tool. Okay, not too bad, and we'll do the other side here just to clean it up a bit. All right, good enough. Good enough, I'd say. We'll quit while we're ahead. And you see, there's a couple little places we missed there in the teeth, but for the most part, we've sanded a significant amount of the surface area of this thing. So there's a bunch of techniques I've seen. I've seen people that we're just gonna lightly scuff that again in case the oil off my hands might have sealed that or anything. And brush it off good. And like I said, I've seen a bunch of techniques for this, but what I'm actually going to do is we'll stir that up again, make sure it's mixed good. We're going to use this technique. And we're going to drop that bad boy in there. And we're going to stir it around. And make sure like all the bubbles, like it bubbled a little bit, we're going to make sure that liquid gets all over that thing. And then we'll pull it out. And then we're going to stand it up here on the edge so it's not making contact with much of anything. Can you see that? I guess you can't really see that there. You can see already it's browning a bit. That damn thing. This damn thing. That does not like the glass, does it? Alright, so let's put that on here. You can see already it's the water from where that's touching kind of looks kind of rusty. And let me see if I can zoom that in just a tiny bit. You can see it's rusting a bit. It's starting to brown up a tiny bit. So that's cool. Hopefully it rusts a bit more. The first test piece I did, you can see it, I don't know if you can see that. It's oxidizing more as it sits there, but it wasn't, I don't think I was aggressive enough with the sanding. But I think ultimately, like if we would do this and it wouldn't quite reach the level of of rust that we'd want. You could probably go back and sand this again. Like you could probably do, multiple rounds of this rusting process where we just go back and hit it again with, maybe you'd even want like more aggressive sandpaper. There, you can see the water on that. It's definitely oxidizing. But maybe even more aggressive sandpaper would work better. Because this is 220. Maybe you could use like a 180. I've actually seen people using as aggressive as like an 80 grit sandpaper, which is pretty rough. But I don't happen to have any on hand. This is actually the coarsest sandpaper I have. I have like 220, 320, 480, some 1500, which almost doesn't even feel like sandpaper. But no, that is cool. You can definitely see it kind of doing its thing. I kind of put marks on it by letting it fall over. I'm going to dip it again. Shake off the excess. And then set it back here. Oh, damn it. I did it again. Dip it. Shake. And then hopefully not knock it over this time. But yeah, we'll let that sit there. Whew, that vinegar stinks. But that, as far as I understand, is all that's really required to kind of patina this, which is kind of cool. Because it's not very difficult to do. There, that's focused a little bit better. Salt water can make it happen faster. Well, if you saw us make the solution, this is vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, and salt. So maybe we could be a little more aggressive with the salt. I'm not sure, but you can see it's bubbling on there. I guess we can rotate it just to make sure it doesn't end up making contact in the same spot for a long time. But yeah, you can definitely see it's doing something. Let me see if I can get the camera at a better angle. And try my best not to knock it over. There we go. Yeah, I don't know how long to let it set. Let's go ahead and try another one. We'll add some more salt to the solution and see if that increases things a bit. There's a good bit more salt. We'll stir that up. It's delaminating the hell out of our Q-tip. I know that. All right, and I'm just gonna hit this one a little bit more with the sandpaper, and then not touch the faces. And this one doesn't have like the, I guess we can fix that a little bit. This one has the burring that we were talking about. But I guess it doesn't matter for the purposes of this. We're just trying to see like how it oxidizes. See if like more salt oxidizes it a little bit more. We'll actually rub this one, make sure it gets in there real good. All right, and we'll shake the bit of the excess off, and then we'll set those side by side and see if there's any. Oh, don't fall over. But I'd imagine if you'd let those sit for a few hours, they would rust up pretty nicely. I think a little bit more salt. I think with this one you can see that it's oxidizing a little more aggressively. So are those magnetic? They're not technically magnetic. They're just ferrous, so they will react to magnets. If you see, I have some rare earth magnets here, some real small ones. And like here's another one that we printed just now, they are magnetic in the sense that they will stick to magnets. So yeah, that is kind of cool. But they themselves, like if I take these metal scissors, they're not actually magnetic themselves. They're just ferrous. Because they must have like an iron powder or something in there. But you can see their magnets stick pretty good to them. So yeah, I don't know exactly what kind of applications you could use this for, but yeah, it is kind of cool that it is like that. But I think the nicest thing is that this just prints like PLA. They do give you a warning that this is abrasive material, so that if you print with it for very long, you probably will have to end up replacing your nozzle. But like me, I bought one of those fun kits that has like 6 different nozzle sizes, and I have a second 0.4 millimeter. So I threw like the original 0.4 that came with my machine in there, and I don't think doing like the little bit of printing I'm going to do is actually going to wear the nozzle out. But even if it does, this is kind of like a spare that I have. So worst case scenario, you have to replace your $7 brass nozzle tip. But no, that's cool stuff. Like I said, you can definitely see in the liquid underneath of them that it is rusting. And damn it, I knocked him over. Shit balls. These aren't the thickest pieces, and this card's kind of making it even more difficult to stand them up. There we go. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, you could do a little bit more experimenting with the ratios of the salt and peroxide and vinegar and stuff. There's probably, you know, a magic ratio that'll really just oxidize the hell out of these. I don't know. Like Aaron said, I know salt water. A little bit of salt water will rust the hell out of most metals. So I guess it'd be kind of cool to do a test without even using like the peroxide. I don't know how much that actually. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could do a little bit of experimentation. But for now, we're actually going to switch gears, and we have our piece over there that we painted, which is probably dry now. So I would like to do the wash now, but we're going to do the off-white. I really want to do that. And while we're doing this, I think we'll just stick with the cheap paints. Again, I have like a cheap Walmart. This color is called Parchment. It's a really cheap acrylic paint. Shake it up a bit. We'll get our little card we were painting with here. And we're going to pick out the skulls in this. So we'll kind of let those sit there and rust for a bit. And kind of switch gears here. And we painted this, you guys recall, we painted the antique copper kind of color on this piece at the beginning of the stream while our pieces were printing. So we're just going to come back. Going to take some of our cheap brushes here. We're going to get a little bit smaller brush. And we're just going to put some off-white on these skull pieces here to add a little bit of detail to these. Like, you see this looks fine with the metal and stuff. But I think if we pick these skulls out in either side of this, it's really, really going to make a big difference in the overall appearance of this. So, ooh, got a little bit aggressive there. I don't actually have my water sitting here, so we're just gonna stick that in my mouth there quick. And again, we're not doing anything crazy here. We're just gonna go in and pick this skull out in this off-white color. And we have a line, we have that line around the edge of the skull, and we're going to try to make that as clean as possible without getting too crazy, wasting time on it. Because the wash is going to go a long way. If the wash works properly, the wash will go a long way to hiding some of those seams and stuff. Again, I know I'll put this on the webcam here in a second, but I want to hold it over here near me where I can see what I'm doing for at least this clean line. Just want to make it look nice. All right, it looks like we'll probably have to do 2 coats of this white color. With a little piece like this, it's not that big of a deal. I'll do this side, and then flip it over and do the other side, and then. But you see, that's what we're doing there. We just want to pick that skull bit out, and then when we wash this, it should look sweet. It really should look nice. But we're gonna go in here and just pick out most of this skull. Basically the whole inside of this little area here. And we'll try to keep clean lines because we have where this white butts up against that copper in there. We want to keep that seam as clean as we can. Again, we're not getting too crazy. Like if I mess up a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Same with the seam across the bottom. Just want that to be kind of a clean line. But we're not overly concerned about it. Because once we get these edges defined, it's really quick to just throw paint in the middle. But for some pieces, I would be a little more careful than this. I'm actually going to use my solution here to thin this. I've never used hydrogen peroxide and vinegar to thin acrylic paints, but there's a first time for everything. All right, we're just getting inside the sockets here. There, I got a little bit of paint where I didn't want it. It's handy to have especially with acrylics, it's handy to have a little brush on hand. And if you're really quick, you can either use your finger or like another brush and just go back. Man, I can't get that centered. And clean up the paint that's in an area where you don't want it. All right, and then we're just going to fill the middle in. All the cracks and crevices. And then like this light color especially is going to kind of look terrible at first. Like when I show you this, you're going to be like, oh my God, it looks so much better before. But the thing is, once we wash it, it should define all this detail in this like rib cage and stuff again. So there we have it more or less roughed in. And like I said, it kind of looks terrible now because it's like, man, we'd have this big like white blotch on our otherwise like cool looking Gothic pipeline and stuff. And we're going to do another coat on this, but like the forehead of the skull and stuff, I'm going to smooth out a little bit more paint just to try to get as much coverage as we can. Because that is going to be the most visible area. And again, in any big areas like this, we're just going to want to like use big smooth strokes so we don't get brush lines when there's visible areas, and then the rest of it really doesn't matter. But there we go. Have it roughed in. We picked our skull out. See, we have fairly clean lines on all that. It's perfectly fine for something that's just going to be sitting on a table. And most people, like if I have it sitting there, the closest anybody's really going to get to this in regular usage is maybe like 12 to 18 inches. So it's not super critical to be ridiculous about like worrying about like super clean lines and anything, unless you're really, I don't know. I'm pretty picky most of the time, but this is mainly about there, I touched that other side. Damn it. This is mainly just like demonstrating like the basic techniques and stuff. A lot of this, like if you do anything like this, if you do it a few times, you just kind of slowly get better at it. All right, now we're doing this little arch here. It's just more important than anything else, because if this line's dirty, like if we get paint where we don't want it, it's going to be fairly obvious on the top of this skull here. Because that should be like a fairly well-defined, clean line around here. You just want to make sure you have plenty of paint on the brush so it flows nice. And just kind of drag it around that curve. My hands are super shaky. It's been a while since I've done any painting like this. It's actually been several years since I've done any painting like this. And again, we just want to smooth that out so it's not lumpy or, you know, any terrible brush marks or anything crazy. And then the rest of it, just kind of jam paint in there. Make sure we get our crevices and don't leave any of that bronze coming through. Or copper, I'm sorry, it's antique copper. Getting all these deep cracks. And then the funny thing is, like, you be like very careful about like painting stuff like this. And then we're essentially just going to slop this wash all over this and then shake most of it off. So it's kind of an odd combination of processes where you want like these undercoats to be as clean as possible. Like, you want nice clean lines, just like if you're doing like a coloring book. You want the right colors in the right places. And then the wash, you just kind of want to like slather all over everything. Let me catch up on chat here. Do you water your... Oh, hey, Adam. Do you water your paints down a smidge? I do normally. I don't actually have my water sitting here. But yeah, like when I was doing the kind of antique copper on this, you just fairly regularly want to dip your brush in water and then flick the excess off and then just resume painting. Because you kind of want your paints to flow nicely and be kind of thin. Because if you paint with thin paints and then do multiple coats, your finish will be quite a bit better than if you try to like leave the paint thick and get good coverage with one coat. But this is going okay. You definitely notice a difference with cheap paints. Like if you buy, like I have these more expensive like Vallejo colors. The pigment is much denser in these paints, and the coverage is significantly better. And then when you buy like these cheap acrylics, like the pigment isn't quite as dense, and especially if you're watering your paint down like you should be a little bit, or thinning it. You'll notice that some colors just really don't cover very well. So you might have to do a little bit of experimentation. Because the materials they use for pigment are different from color to color. So like say you buy a... Oh, my cat. I'm going to have to go upstairs and let my cat out. He's driving me insane. He's up there pacing, and I can hear his claws, like, clicking on the floor. But, yeah, say you buy a color, and you find that it's just not covering very well. That actually doesn't look too bad. That's a relatively clean job. But, yeah, see, we got our basic colors in place. We didn't do this end, but with this end, we got our antique copper, and we picked out the little bit of white. If you really wanted to... like these are all kind of bones in here. If you really wanted to, you could go in and pick all those out, and it would make this piece look even cooler. You could go in and like paint some of this stuff different colors, like make it maybe like a black wheel or something. But no, like I was saying, if you find a color that doesn't cover very well, it's worth finding like a color that's one or like a shade above or below that in the little lineup. Because the pigments are different in different colors, and it might just be the case that the pigment they're using isn't that great. I will double check when I get home. What was the question there, Dawn? Sorry, Dawn. I'm gonna go back here and find your question. I have a question off feed topic. Have you had any issues with the dryland bushings? I seem to be having intermittent binding. I actually haven't had any binding issues, Dawn. I have seen people that have had that issue. Like if you saw when I was installing the ones in the y-axis bed, if I would have just tightened everything down and installed them without really like taking a look at anything, the side with two bushings, if you don't line them up, you can get binding. But that's the case with bearings. I don't know. I don't know if you mentioned which axis they're in. But anywhere where you're going to have two of those that are on the same smooth rod, like if you watch when I replaced the bearings in my y-axis with the bushings, you're going to kind of want to, like, before you tighten anything down, and you're not going to want to make anything super tight, is you're going to want to wiggle the bushings around to make sure that they're moving fairly easily. But especially in the x-axis, I don't really know what you could do. Like, you could try rotating the bushings a little bit. I don't know. It's some of those questions without seeing your machine. It's kind of tough. It's hard to tell. I would definitely, like you mentioned, your belt tensions. I would definitely kind of check your belt tension. If your belts are too tight, it could possibly be skewing something that would give you a little bit of binding. But yeah, like beyond that, I haven't seen too many people that had problems with binding. Usually, if anything, if people complain about the IGUS bushings, they complain about the lower tolerances, which is actually the opposite. But yeah, like just running down the list without being able to see your machine, I would double check that none of your zip ties are like absurdly tight, like so you're not like squishing the bushings or anything crazy. Again, I would kind of just like try rotating them a little bit on any of those axes where you have like two bushings that are in line on the same smooth rod, to make sure that you don't feel any binding there. Something else, one of the first things that comes to mind is are you using silent mode or low power mode? Because if you're using that, it might not actually be related to the bushings. That's even if your bushings and or bearings are installed completely correctly. If you're using low power or quiet mode on the MK2, you can sometimes get skipped steps in the motors just because there's lower voltage being sent to them. Low power mode completely stuck. If it's binding that bad, I would suggest cutting the zip ties and trying to just like move them and see if you feel binding with your fingers, like just moving them. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Like you could try to check to make sure your actual smooth rods aren't bent. Because that could cause some binding. Yeah, it's tough. I wish I had better advice. But yeah, I would just check those few things. Make sure your zip ties aren't absurdly tight. Try like cutting the zip ties, rotating the bearings a little bit, and then trying to move either your y-axis carriage or the x-axis carriage just by hand, turning the steppers off to see if you feel binding there. If you do, it's hard to tell. Like Aaron suggested, if you go to the Slack group, somebody might be able to like get a little more in depth with you, like have a little more back and forth. But yeah, if you're having binding, it's definitely an issue you want to address. Because if they won't move at all in low power mode, you've definitely got an issue that you want to address before you really try to like resume printing. But yeah, just in general, anybody else, I honestly wouldn't recommend using low power mode. With a few minor modifications, the machine doesn't make all that much noise, and to me, it's not worth the risk of potentially skipping steps, especially on longer prints. But hey, 3D Maker noob. But yeah, like 3D Maker said, there's a lot of people that just have some issues with low power mode because it's trying to operate at a little lower voltage to try to reduce like resonance noise and stuff in the steppers. And to me, it's really not worth it. Yeah, it's honestly not worth it, in my humble opinion. But anyway, I'm gonna set this in front of the fan for just a few moments, just to dry that white up. You see, we got both sides. We're good to go. We're gonna dry this off, take a look at these rusted pieces, and then wash this, and we'll pretty much be done for today. Oh, and I'm gonna take a moment here and let my freaking cat out. He's driving me insane. All right. Yeah, my cat was upstairs freaking out. Okay. So I'm going to move the camera down. Let's take a look at these pieces now that they've had a couple minutes to set. They're okay. I think there's still a little bit more room for experimentation. I'm going to dry these off. The back side of that one actually looks a little bit cooler. It's a little bit more consistent with the rust. You can see it's definitely like patinaed. But this one, you see we got a little bit of pooling there. Let me dry these off and see what they look like. But yeah, you can see it's a cool effect. It definitely is a cool filament. I think with a little bit more experimentation, we could get some pretty cool results with it. Mine aren't quite as rusty as some of the ones that I've seen people do. But no, overall, it's still pretty nifty. I would imagine as time passes, these will just like continue to oxidize more and more. You can see the lighting is kind of playing some tricks. Like if I shade that a little bit, you can see they're rusted a little bit more than they look like on camera. They do have a nice brown kind of patina. But I do like these. Like I said, one of the coolest things about them is they feel like they're pressed graphite. They like a slightly metallic poker chip. Like they kind of have that feel. But you can see compared to, there's the two we rusted. And then like here's some of the ones that we didn't. Again, man, I can't get stuff oriented with the camera. There's two that aren't done and two that are done. And you can see they definitely have kind of a different vibe. But yeah, I think with a little experimentation, we can get them looking pretty sweet. It might be a matter of like using a different grit sandpaper. It's hard to tell. It might actually be better with like a finer grit sandpaper. Because that might actually, instead of being so abrasive, like let me take some of this 1500 grit here. That might get more of like a polishing effect, which will end up bringing like more of the metal particles to the surface instead of just being like straight abrasive. Yeah, I think that might be the way to go, actually, looking at this now. Because it does end up like polishing a little bit, which I think might work better to get some of those metallic particles to the surface. Oh, I don't know if that shows up on camera, but yeah, look, that you can definitely see that looks more metallic there using the 1500 grit sandpaper. So maybe that's the way to go. Oh, plus it feels sweet now. Plus it does really feel sweet. So maybe if I'd get, like maybe finishing with 1500 grit, maybe get like an 800 grit to start, and then finishing with a 1500. Maybe that's the way to go to get these really, really rusty. Because, like, with these tokens, the rustier the better. Like, if they were all kind of almost fuzzy with rust, that would be pretty sweet. Let's give that one a try. You can see that definitely brings out, like, the metallic quality of it. That's straight up shiny. But yeah, I think if you get the right combination of sandpapers and stuff, you could get some pretty cool results out of this. I know with like maybe next time we'll do some tests with the polishable stainless steel that I got, because I can see already that would be really cool with the stainless steel filament, like using like a really fine grit sandpaper to polish it. And then maybe even using like some Brasso or something on it to finish it. But No, it is cool messing with this stuff. I know Aaron's not amused. Aaron thinks we're watching paint dry, but you can see that one's oxidizing already. That fine sandpaper really brings out the metallic particles. That one's oxidizing very aggressively. You can see on the backside there. So yeah, I think with a bit of experimentation, I've seen a couple videos on this, but I don't think anybody really tried a whole bunch of different things to try to get them to really just oxidize like crazy. Not sure if you have it in the US, but a product called T-Cut. I've never actually seen that. No, if the whole thing is just kind of like polishing that metallic stuff to the surface, there are definitely some avenues that I could think of to try experimenting with. I've actually known quite a few guys over the years that did like auto body and paint work. So like I said, maybe if you'd get like a 600 to 800 grit sandpaper and get like a nice flat surface, so you're sanding like the entire surface, and then go to something like this 1500 and maybe even polish it with like Peter suggested, like some Brasso or something. Yeah, maybe you could get these to rust like really aggressively. But no, cool stuff. It is cool stuff. But I don't know, you might, it's hard to tell. You might run into, like there I wiped that piece off, and it might be the case that if you make them too smooth, like there I just wiped that lightly with some paper towel, and it actually took most of that oxidized material off. So maybe like the rougher surface, I wish I had some really aggressive sandpaper here, but I don't think I have any. Let me look really quick, see if I can find like some 80 grit. No, I know I don't. If I could find like a file. Nope, I can't find shit. Let me look one more place. Nope, no such luck. But now I'll have to do some testing and see what kind of different results. Luckily, we do have nice little pieces. With these little kind of coin-sized tokens, we do have nice little pieces where we could do like I could easily pump another 12 of those out and test a bunch of different like from both ends. We could test different mixtures of our kind of like salt, hydrogen peroxide, and vinegar solution, and then try like a series of different like sanding approaches. But no, so that's, I mean, I guess that's all we're gonna do with that for today. That's the the Rustable Iron PLA. It's still cool. Even if that's all, the better we could get those to rust. Like I said, the kind of unique tactile feel that they have, that kind of like graphite clink that they have, to me personally, that's enough to justify me using this for some stuff. That's a really, really just great feel. They have like a nice little bit of heft to them. They kind of feel like I said, kind of like slightly metallic poker chips. So that's really sweet. But anyway, let's get this cleaned up. We'll set all these aside. I'll mess with these later this evening if I get a chance. And today's Tuesday. I'll probably stream again Thursday like usual. I missed last Thursday, I know. I had some personal issues, but I'll do like a series of tests on that stuff, and we'll kind of take a look at the results on Thursday, because I think there's a lot of potential there. Like I said, there's just so many kind of unique things you could do with filaments like that. The green or red Dremel Scotch wheels work really well. I've used those in the past. I actually don't have any. I don't think I have any on hand right now. I know as soon as I get off stream, I'm going to find my big old stack of sandpaper somewhere. As soon as I quit, I'm going to find it. I'll leave it. It's irritating the hell out of me. Okay, well, anyway, let's, you guys remember we have our wash here. Hopefully this doesn't ruin our piece. It is a distinct possibility. All right, so we've got our little sewer piece here, and this is the last thing we're going to do today. So we've got our piece, we got to paint it up, we've got, you know, our three colors, we just have like the gray for the pipe, we're going to leave that be, that was just the primer that we happened to use. And let me get the camera situated here. There we go. So we've got our pieces painted, you see we've got relatively clean lines in there, we got our white picked out, all that jazz. And we got our end piece. And we've got like our little pot of kind of awful here. And we're going to get this brush ready. Again, I'm using this like vinegar and weird solution of stuff to clean my brushes a little bit. Seems all right. Seems fine. What am I doing here? Oh, I want to make another little stirrer here. We'll just use this one as is. We want to stir this. And this still seems a little thick. I think I want to add a little bit more water to our wash. Because we want this to like, we really don't want this to be like paint. We want this to be like an ink. And like I said, you can buy products like this. But I've seen some videos where guys made their own using like a mixture like this. It's just like a couple different types of acrylic paint to get the roundabout color that we want. And then a couple drops of dish soap to help it kind of flow like ink should. And like just pulling this up against the edge of the this container here, that seems about right. That seems to be behaving like we want it to. So all you do when you're applying washes, let me move this up a little bit. Let me scoot. All you want to do is really just kind of liberally apply this stuff all over everything. And yeah. Like so. Now you don't want to really like use your bristles and stuff to agitate it too much because we don't want to pull any of this acrylic paint off. We just want to cover everything nice and evenly, and we don't want any like bubbles. And I know you're thinking, oh my god, what is he doing to this thing we just spent time painting? But bear with me. And we're going to cover the whole thing, and it's going to drip a little bit. This is a little bit messy. But this is the nature of washes, especially with acrylics. Like if this was ink and you were doing this with oils, you'd have to be a little bit more careful, but we're just going to really aggressively get this all over everything, and then we're going to go back and pull the excess off as well as we can. We want to get everything. We're going to get the pipe. We're going to get all the pieces we painted. The consistency of this seems pretty good, I gotta say. Because this is going to add color, but at the same time it's thin. So when we go back and start brushing some of this excess off, it's going to let our colors come through. And you could combine this with all kinds of other techniques and really get some cool results. Like if you've ever seen guys that do like historical stuff, like tanks, airplanes, stuff like that, they use some chalks and basically like dust to kind of like weather things, and this would combine well with that, especially with like this this kind of copper color we got going on here. All right, so now we're gonna set this down. You see we're making a bit of a mess. We're gonna take our paper towel and get most of this off our brush, and then start going back and getting a lot of this excess out of these areas. And then, like I said, you could come back and dry brush, like the skull. We could go back and dry brush like a lighter bone color. But I want this to look really, just really old and grimy and weathered. And you can see as we pull this excess off, we're getting our copper color back through. And it still looks kind of metallic, but it's really subdued. And then we won't do that today because this will take some time to dry. But what we do to finish this is come back with some flat varnish or like some matte varnish. I do have some of that on hand, but flat's ideal because flat will make it look kind of dusty and oxidized. But I've also seen guys, like when we mix this wash up, we could mix several different colors. Like being that this is like kind of a copper, we could basically split this batch of wash and add like a bit more green to it and come back and just like put that in some places. And really make this metal look like nice and patinaed. See, we're just trying to blot all these big pools up. And then we're going to use the secret method. Now, some of these areas, like on the face of this skull and stuff, we're gonna make sure we drag the brush across and get a nice clean surface across that, so we don't have any like pooling or anything. But no, this seems like this is gonna work. This obviously isn't how normal ink works exactly. This is coloring the piece a little bit more than ink generally would. So we might need like a little bit more of the dish detergent in here to make this flow a little bit better, to flow off these pieces. But overall, I think this will look cool, because this is just supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic industrial kind of terrain piece. So I think we've accomplished that. This will look kind of cool. And we just want to make sure we're not leaving any brush strokes in this. So we're using like big, broad strokes when we pull this off. And we're trying to pull like these top areas. We're trying to pull as much of that off as we can, so our copper shines through. You could even take, like, since this piece is basically for the purposes of experimenting, you could actually take, like some guys do with tanks and stuff, and like on these copper pieces, actually just wipe this off to leave it in, you know, the deepest areas and get as much of that metal coming through as possible. You could totally go through and do this. You see how forgiving this stuff is, especially when you're trying to do weathered pieces. We're literally just wiping this off with a paper towel. But don't be too aggressive. This is acrylic paint, so you do have the potential of pulling the actual paint off, but yeah, see, you can get some really cool effects with this stuff. It's the nice thing about painting stuff that's supposed to look old and weathered. Like, within reason, you can do whatever the hell you want. There, I'm just kind of swishing this around like an idiot. And it actually looks really cool on the finished piece. But there, it just gives you an idea of, like, some of the things you can accomplish. Like, when this dries, like I said, the closest anybody's going to get to this is probably, like, 12 or 18 inches. But when this dries, this is going to look pretty sweet. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with it. But you could do all kinds of like other finishing techniques with this. You could come back and dry brush like some lighter copper on the pipe. And yeah, as this dries, that color will just like settle more and more down in the crevices. So yeah, very cool. You see, especially like the metal, like that's just a really, really easy way to like age it. But yeah, like I said, that's the first I've ever made like my own wash. So overall, you see like when you look up really close, it looks one way, but when you just like see it, you know, sitting on the table, it looks really cool. Glycerin, yeah, glycerin works really well too. I have seen guys that use that. Muric acid, I never really thought of that. Yeah, that would be pretty sweet. I could try to get some of that. That was Earl was talking about using muric acid to oxidize the metallic pieces. Let me clean some of this slop up. All right. I got a mess here. But no, I'm totally satisfied with that. And again, that's all with like inexpensive acrylics and stuff. You know, we maybe have like $3 worth of paint invested in this, and we have enough to do probably 24 of these little things. And as far as like the prints themselves, I think you might have about 5 hours of print time to do like and you see how small these are. These are relatively, they're not tiny, but you know, compared to my finger, like these pieces are fairly small. So like I said, when you see them on the webcam, like we're up kind of close. But yeah, like where I'm sitting, like just looking at this from 12 inches away or so, we probably should come back and dry brush that bone a little bit. Or maybe in hindsight, just not even bother doing the bone at all. But that copper overall looks pretty great. It just looks really gritty and patinaed, and yeah, cool stuff. But what are we at here? About 2.5 hours. That's really all I had planned for today. I just wanted to. I've had some of these projects sitting around that I've wanted to get to for a while. But maybe I'll paint, because we could even go back. You could even go back. That's a nice thing about like how forgiving some of these things are when you have pieces that aren't really crucial. We could go back and paint our antique copper over that white and just wash the whole thing. Because man, if we do it that way, you could really paint these quick. Because then we'd just be doing the copper and that's it, and then just washing it and kind of. I do like the wipe technique. Like I said, that antique copper, it gives it kind of a really cool look. It really fits kind of like the atmosphere of the universe that game's in. But I think just doing the copper and stuff, man, I could probably paint half a dozen of these in a couple hours. But yeah, just an idea. Like I said, I haven't painted in a while, but I've been really looking forward to trying to finish some products. Like the dungeon and stuff that I have is Earl said patinaing. I guess that's how you say that. Patinaing metals is something he does every day. What do you do, Earl? Just out of curiosity. But like I was saying, I've been really like looking forward to finishing some prints, because there's just so much stuff we can make with 3D printers. And like on sites like Thingiverse, there's a ton of stuff available. And then like I showed you guys earlier, there's fairly inexpensive file sets like these Gothic pipeline pieces and stuff that you can do, little projects with and get really good results. Like I said, if I'd seal this with like a matte varnish, something like that, it'll be really durable. Like this is the one that I glued together with 2-part epoxy. I mean, you could beat somebody to death with this piece and it probably wouldn't break. But no, it's cool stuff. I'm glad I joined the 3D printing community. There's definitely tons of potential here. Earl asked if I've ever seen old Games Workshop / Citadel books on Method. Yeah, I have. I've played Warhammer for. Let's see. I'm 32, so probably just under 20 years. Yeah, because I remember, like 20 years ago, painting was very different in the tabletop hobby. Like you probably know if you have books and stuff from then. I was having some conversations with friends. Because like I know some younger guys that play like 40K now, and they can't relate to like how 40K was before, how it was basically all kind of like tongue-in-cheek, kind of jokey, and like the color schemes were all ridiculous. Like everything was like bright red and green and yellow, and everything is like my one friend says Poe face, like Edgar Allan Poe. Everything's like very Poe face now, where it's like super serious. The 40K world's like super gritty and serious and grim and blah, blah, blah. And like before it was like totally kind of like cartoony and comical. It's funny to see that transition in the ambiance of the universe over time. Warhammer Fantasy is just as bad. It's all like super serious now. But no, I do remember some of those books. I used to have some of them. Like you said, especially from, I think, Citadel, when they were more focused on minis than the actual game. They used to do a lot of those things. One of the guys in our gaming group actually multiple guys in our old gaming group had their armies featured in White Dwarf. It was like the hobbyist magazine for anybody who hadn't seen it before. But the one guy, I've never actually like Googled it. Because I was describing his army to somebody else before. But I always wanted to see if I could find if there was somehow pictures of his army online, because he had one of the coolest. It was Dogs of War, but he actually built like a ship and stuff, and it was all pirate themed with like the multi-part plastic Empire guys. I don't know why I Googled that. I'm probably never going to find a picture of it. But he had an army featured in White Dwarf, and then one of the better painters in our group, his name was Tony Ordana. But he had his army was in a White Dwarf before. He had like a giant like Khorne demon army that was painted like fantastically. Again, I don't know why I'm searching for this. There's like almost zero chance I'd find it. But is that it? That's not it. But yeah, anyway, that's stuff for another time. Historic Origins Studios. Oh, is that what you... Is that where you work, or you did work, or... Oh, really? I've seen that book, Gary Gygax. Yeah, I certainly don't have a copy, but I have seen some of that stuff before. Because I was always one of the younger guys in our gaming group. Like I said, I'm 32, and most of them are in their mid 40s. Stuff like that. Let me grab a mini. I will show you, like, all this stuff actually ties together. This was a guy I actually painted. This is one of the War Machine figures. I painted him in like 20 minutes. Again, this was just... I was actually planning to leave the one day, and my wife had to stay after at work. So I just like threw some copper and stuff on this and washed it. But you can kind of see... Oh, that's right. The webcam zoomed in. I was like, why is my angle so weird here? I forgot we zoomed that in earlier. And I turned autofocus on. Hopefully it's not going to freak out. Okay, but anyway, you see, like, here's one of the War Machine minis. This is a little robot guy from my faction. And you see the scale's, like, pretty good for these, because he's, like, a smallish robot. And you see, it's just enough to, like, kind of signify, like, a little bit of cover in the game. Stuff like that. And then the tokens that we made, which I threw back here, you see they are continuing to oxidize a bit. And there goes the camera flicker. But you see, they're just they all kind of tie together, and like them being rusted is kind of cool. I can use my mouse pad here. But we have like my little robot, and then these are they're called focus tokens, and they'll just like kind of track different things in the game, sitting kind of behind the mini or beside him. And then like these are part of the terrain and stuff that we'll be using. So no, it is kind of cool to have everything that all ties together. And yeah, who doesn't love playing games, man? But anyway, I'm kind of lingering at this point. But that's all I really had planned for today. You are the owner of HistoricOriginsStudios.com. Let us check this out briefly while we have you here. I have to size my windows kind of weird. All right, let me get this. But no, like I was saying earlier, I'm trying to get a gaming group together. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the Elder Scrolls games. All right, here's what we got here. Let's take a look at Earl's site while we're just kind of hanging out for a minute. So what are we looking at here, Earl? Got a nice little intro video. That's a cool little piece. I might be stealing that for Facebook here. But no, is this all stuff that you make? I assume it all looks cool. Or are these like articles that you do? Explain us what you do here. Oh, we got a dead link. Hopefully there's like no spread eagle nude chicks or anything here. Looks like you're doing some bronze casting. That's pretty sweet. Looks like you do some cool stuff, man. I don't know what that is. Is that like a pendant for a necklace or something? But yeah, that's definitely cool stuff. Thanks for sharing. Don't be hating. I do the website development too. I'm not hating. I don't hate. So you do a little bit of steampunky stuff. That's cool as shit. I gotta say. But no, cool, man. No, it's like we've talked about that before. There's no shortage of interesting people in the world. That's why oh, the gaming hall, eh? I wish that was your actual workspace. But no, check it out. Yeah, I'll throw a link to this in the end of the description if anybody wants to come and check your little piece of the internet out. But like I said, guys, we'll stream Thursday, and barring anything kind of weird happening like happened last week to me, but I'll do some more testing with getting these to oxidize. Try a couple different like mixes of our solution and stuff. Try a couple different sandpapers, and we'll take a look at them Thursday and see what we come up with. And otherwise, Thursday we're going to be doing some testing with do a couple small prints with some of the MakerBox filaments that I've got, because they've been backing up. I think I've got like 6 or 7 that I need to do test prints with. And I think Thursday we're gonna want to, or I'm gonna want to do a couple little prints for my daughter. I haven't decided what, but I've got that like glitter filament, that glitter PLA that I want to test, and we've got some of the what do they call that? Like the thermal color change, where it goes from like a dark color to a light color whenever you touch it. So probably do a couple little prints with that stuff. I don't know what I could do with the color change. I guess anything would be kind of cool with that stuff. I guess I could do something as simple as like a maker coin or something, but Mathematics said he remembers when all the www domains came with the under construction and marquee text. I do remember that. I remember the early days of the internet, the internets. We were just talking about like one of the early. Oh God, what was his name? There was the guy that had the text-only rant site that I used to love, and he's actually kind of still around, but it's kind of just, I don't know. It's not the same. Man, his name's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. But he used to just have like mini rants about all kinds of different topics and stuff. And it was, man, the more I talk, the closer I feel like I'm getting. But I just remember his like, again, this is like old school internet. His page was like a black background with yellow text. Surely some of you guys remember that. And he just used to post like, he was such an asshole, but his stuff was like funny to read. He just like posted rants about like different stuff. But yeah, Aaron, that is definitely old school. That is definitely old school. Pirate BBS for 14 years. I used to war dial with my 36K modem. I I think I got the internet in uh I can't remember the year. I want to say like I want to say like 94 is when I got the internet. And yeah, I want to say like 94, 95 is when I actually got my first modem. It was a 28 point something, is a 28.8K, or maybe it was just 28K. But yeah, I remember that. Cuz that was back before it wasn't really, I guess it was the internet, but not really. But I never did any browsing. All I did was there were some games where you could like direct dial. I think it was IPX connections. You could direct dial IPX and play multiplayer with some people. But do you want to start dropping pants and showing TI 99s? No, I do have my Commodore 64 somewhere. But no, we don't have to get our EPs out. But yeah, I've been a nerd for a long time. Been a nerd for a real long time. Considering my age, anyway. I know there's guys that have been around longer than me, but yeah, considering my age. See how nice that looks now that it's drying. Like I said, the skull kind of looks like... we do need to go back and kind of touch the skull up with some highlights, but... Man, that bronze looks sweet. Or the copper. For the minimal amount of effort we put into that looks really good. I'm really happy with that. Held a phone line hostage for 48 hours in an attempt to convince my mom that I needed my own phone line. Yeah, I remember... what game was that? I forget what it was. But the one game I used to, again, do like IPX connections with my friend to play multiplayer. And yeah, I remember my freaking mom, she would pick up the phone and you could hear her through the modem talking like, hello? Hello? Get off the line. And then it would like screw your connection up and ruin your game. That happened a lot. Punch cards don't make you cool. That's just old. Government. How is my thermistor? My thermistor, I think is just fine. I can imagine. You can imagine me. You mean Leisure Suit Larry? I played my fair share of Leisure Suit Larry, if that's what you're talking about. Leisure Suit Larry. Yeah. Like I said, the Commodore 64 was like the first computational device that I ever had. I had the Commodore. I can't recall any of the games I played. I only had a couple. Like, I know there was a couple of like the text-based adventure games that I liked playing. But then I upgraded to we had an Apple One for a little while. And I actually liked the I know it's like heresy to say that, but I actually liked the Commodore more than the Apple One just because I was more familiar with it. And then I remember in school we had Apple IIs. And like I remember I went to a Catholic school, it was fairly small. And we had like the computer lab and we had like 12 Apple IIs, but only one of them had a color monitor. And you had to be like kid of the day or something special or do something special to be able to play on the color monitor. And it was like the coolest thing ever. And then like the first like actual PC I ever had was a Packard Bell. I can't remember the model number, but it didn't even have Windows on it. It had Packard Bell Navigator on it, which is like a kind of a crappy Windows 3.1 analog. And because I remember upgrading it to Windows 3.1, and I thought that was I thought that was awesome. You could actually just like click your way around, and it didn't suck. But or well, no, I guess I used DOS mostly on the Packard Bell because it did have the Navigator, which was like a GUI, but it was kind of crappy. So I used like DOS for most things. Like that, most of the games I played were in DOS. Like I remember playing. Oh man, there were so many good DOS games. I know we're totally sorry anybody that's tuning in for 3D printing content, but we're done for the day and just kind of hanging out. But DOS games. I still play some DOS games to this day. Freaking love that stuff. I remember playing, like obviously like the Duke Nukem 1 and 2. I remember playing Hocus Pocus. I actually have a box copy of Hocus Pocus. What else? Blake Stone, Aliens of Gold. I remember playing that, all the Blake Stone games. And then like I played all those things, all like the early DOS games, and then the first game that really like just blew my mind and I loved, and it was like a nightmare to get installed because I only had like a 300 megabyte hard drive, I think, or maybe it was 200. Maybe it was a 200 megabyte hard drive in the Packard Bell. But yeah, mathematics. I already got all the DOS games, man. I'm on top of that. But the first game that just blew me away, and was really not appropriate for my age, was Duke Nukem 3D. Holy hell, that game like changed my life. Well, Doom. I guess you do have to give credit where credit's due. I did play a whole lot of Doom shareware, that is. But yeah, then I got Duke 3D, man. I was already hooked as like a PC gamer, but then Duke 3D came around and just like, oh god, I spent so much time playing that. Because they had the level editor, like the build program from, what was the name? Silverman made the build engine. And I remember like building levels and stuff in for Duke 3D, and I used to do that more than I played the actual game, was like building levels, because I had to print out the freaking build guide with single sided printing on my Bubble Jet, my freaking Bubble Jet printer, which was a huge upgrade from the dot matrix printer we had. Yeah, that was like a huge guide, and you had all these tags and stuff, and it was so like kind of ass backwards, like building levels and stuff. So many quirks in that thing. Like, say you had a level that had a room above another room. When you're actually building it, it was 2-dimensional. Like the build engine itself wasn't. It was 3-dimensional, but like the levels themselves, like the room, you actually build it inside the other room, and then you had to like tag it, and it would separate them in game when you're actually rendering it and stuff. It's kind of weird. But your grandpa told me he once paid like $400 for a 10 megabyte hard drive. Oh, definitely. They were probably more expensive. Like there was probably a time of day when it was thousands of dollars for a 10 megabyte hard drive. Yeah, the prices of components like usually starts like astronomically high and then comes down as manufacturing costs and volumes and stuff increase. But I think I think I bought like I think I had 200 megabytes total of hard drive space on two hard drives. They must have been like a 150 and a 50, or two 100s or something. But yeah, I remember the first like upgrade drive I bought was like super expensive. It was like $300 or $400, which to me, I had to save up the money as like a kid, which took me like a year. But yeah, I remember it was super expensive, and it was comically small by today's standards. That's back when like a 3.1 or a 3.5 floppy disk was like a useful amount of storage, and now you can't even fit like a single picture on one. Yeah, Computer Shopper. I remember when that was back when different companies used to send mailers out all the time. You have like the catalogs. That's back when the Sears that was down the road from us actually sold computer hardware. Yeah, that was a little while ago. But yeah, I'm a big computer nerd. I don't know as much as some people. Like obviously there's always people that know more than you, but yeah, I've been doing PC gaming since I was like I said, I didn't get the internet. I got a modem. I got a modem in about 95, and I had probably had a computer since I was 6 or 7, so that would have been about 89 or 90. But yeah, thanks, Math. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Like I said, we're kind of like super off topic now. Just kind of shooting the shit. I'll probably trim this off the end of the video whenever it gets posted, but yeah, no, I still have I'm still a big PC gaming advocate. I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and like he has his PS4 and he's been getting kind of frustrated with it for various reasons. I told him, I was like, man, why don't you just save up the money and get yourself like a decent like starter gaming PC, and like it does get a little expensive if you want to play like cutting edge games at max settings and stuff. But if you buy a PC, there are literally thousands of older generation games that you can play that are still fantastic. Like, you guys have heard me gush about the Elder Scrolls games before, but like, I still play Morrowind on a regular basis with a couple mods to like modernize it. But that is still like a fantastic game. The dungeon stuff, like all this stuff, I still have this little. I forgot to turn that off last night. I'm going to be doing a video in the future at some point with the. You can see with a little shadow the LED flicker lights. There we go. They're the little T candle lights, and I've been working on making like an actual 3D printed base and stuff to hold the battery and get your little LED light in there. But it's basically just like an LED with a battery attached to it, and then you can take the battery out whenever you want to turn them off. But gonna be doing some there we go, some dungeon lighting. Oh, it's so freaking cool. Like it's just like elevates the overall appearance of your dungeons and stuff like so much. Like you can see there how it like it doesn't really show up that great on camera, but you get like the ambiance lighting and they flick like little torches and stuff. Super cool. But no, the book I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, little gates and stuff, so cool. The books that, oh, that's right, I can go pick them up at the printers. I'll have to do that. Where did I get the file for that character you had here? Unfortunately, this guy is not 3D printed. Unfortunately, this is like an injected molded figure. This is it's called a galvanizer from War Machine, Convergence of Cyrus or whatever. Unfortunately, I can't print him. I would like to be able to pump some of these out because holy crap, miniatures are expensive anymore. Yeah, holy crap. Like not even just Games Workshop. Like obviously Games Workshop's figures are absurdly expensive anymore. But I think a little guy like this, if you actually pay retail for him, a little freaking I think this is resin. It's like a resin plastic. It's not just like not straight plastic. But I think a guy like this, no metal pieces or anything on him. I think he runs like I want to say like 20 some dollars retail. Like obviously I got him cheaper than that, but yeah, figure prices are absurd anymore. Like these guys, like I have some of these bigger guys. Like this is some of the bigger robots, and it's kind of cool. Like I magnetize my guys because there's like different loadouts and stuff. So it's cool to just have them like magnetized so you can kind of swap the components as you need. But guys like this for like $35 or $38, something crazy. That's why like I never buy figures used anymore or new anymore. I always buy stuff used. I can't afford to buy anything new. Like this guy, I usually buy like lots of figures, and then I needed him, so even the face is magnetized. He has different like face pieces. But like I bought him in a lot, and I sold everything else out of the lot and kept him, so I essentially got him for free when it was all said and done. Because otherwise, I can't justify buying stuff. And then, I mean, if I'm going to have games or War Machine figures out, I might as well show you all this guy. This is a big old hunk of resin right here. This guy is almost completely resin. Super cool figure. This is the Prime Axiom. He probably weighs like 2 or 3 pounds. But the Prime Axiom from the faction I play, it's one of the biggest robot dudes. But that's a pretty cool figure. Again, I'm not going to use him. I'm probably just going to sell him. He was part of one of the lots that I bought. I didn't paint him, but he's not painted too bad. I wouldn't use the wash we made, but if you'd use some like actual ink on him, and just like ink him over what's already here, he would look pretty damn good. But no, that's a cool figure. I don't know why I got him out. It's not relevant to anything, but I'm going to show you some figures, at least show you some cool ones. But Zapal, you just got me a 3D printer. What printer did you get, Zapal? I guess we can mix some 3D printing talk in here while I'm rambling. Oh, that's cool, Earl. You did part of the UI for Lord of the Rings Online. That's cool. Yeah, the I haven't talked about it a whole lot, but Earl, one of the things I do is I buy complete armies and then piece them out on eBay. It's one of the main things that I do for a living. Uh, some of the old man, you were talking about old Games Workshop figures. Some of them are crazy, and then some of them are not so crazy. Uh, Especially things that they used to make in metal and they now only make in plastic. Like for a while there, if you're familiar with Tomb Kings, there's the Casket of Souls, and they obviously quit making everything in the kind of pewter alloy that they used to make figures in, and they I think retailed for like 40 or $50, and somewhere in that region. But the old metal ones, for a while there, I was selling them for $125 a piece because people kind of despise like the fine cast because they break and they don't hold up that well. But yeah, there's a lot of the old metal figures that are worth uh, some of the regular, like some of the old Chaos Warriors and stuff, the single pose medals that had names. Uh, I've gotten 15, damn near $20 for some of those individual figures. Like if you have any old Mordheim figures, they're worth a lot. Some of those guys are worth like a good bit, especially some of the rarer factions like the Carnival Chaos Demon guys and stuff. Some of that's worth a lot of money. But then some of it's worth almost nothing, especially some of the old like single pose plastics they used to have. Some of those you have trouble getting 50 cents a piece for. But you have hundreds from those. Yeah, you'll have to. You should send me a message because there's some things that I'm trying to find like for personal use, or if you'd want to sell everything you have, I might also be interested. So, uh, yeah, Earl, send me a message. We might, if you're looking to get rid of some of that, I might be the guy to get in contact with because I'm always in the market for old GW stuff. Get that little focus there. Yeah, it's funny to me. Earl said he stopped when plastic became the norm. It's funny to me, like this guy is all plastic. He's like I said, it's like it's not the plastic that we're used to from like when GW was like first transitioning to like injection molding sprues and stuff. But this is like a more of like a resin composite plastic kind of stuff. It's a little bit tougher. Like it's a little bit better, but it's kind of weird to me that there are some guys that I game with that can't stand metals and they prefer plastics, and I can't relate to them. Like the one guy that I do gaming with, he's a good bit younger than me, but he hates that metals like won't stay glued. Like you might drop it and it'll like come apart. It's like, yeah, but wouldn't you prefer it come apart to breaking? And like a lot of things, like I'm sure you did a lot of that too. If you really have problems with pieces coming apart, you can pin them. You can actually like get a little mini drill and drill holes in them and put little brass rod in there, and then they're tough as hell. Then they'll just bend if you do anything to them. But it's like guys like you and I that gamed 20 years ago. I still have every metal figure I ever had when I was younger, and they're more or less intact unless you like lose a piece or something. Like you generally don't break the metals. And then like a lot of the plastics I had from them, they're all broke to hell. You know what I mean? They get jumbled around in boxes and they end up breaking, and then you have these like old skeletons, the old plastic skeletons, they'll break in like the middle of bones, and then you have like no chance in hell of ever gluing that back together in a way that's going to stay. But then I have like old metal skeletons from what, like the late 80s, and they're all still like perfect. They're freaking like 30, almost 30 years old. Any good graphic cards to buy? There's like a million guys that could probably give you better advice than me. I have a GTX 780 that I bought. It's probably, what, 2 or 3 years old now. 2 or 3 years ago, I was kind of up to date on technology for that stuff, but anymore, like, I just haven't followed it. I've been kind of like pursuing other things. Like, I mostly play, like, there are some like modern games I play, but I mostly play like older stuff. So, like, barring any like hardware failures, my computer is going to last me for the next 10 years probably for the gaming that I do. So I do know that like the new GTXs and stuff are pretty good, like the 1080s and all that stuff, and the prices are coming down. But no, like Earl said, if you buy a card that's like he said 1 to 2 years, that basically translates to like 1 to 2 generations old. Is usually like the sweet spot to buy, because it's going to be good enough that you can play like modern games at reasonably high settings and resolutions, but you're not going to be paying through the teeth. But it's like me, like I said, I have a GTX 780, and there really aren't many games that I can't play at max settings. As long as you have a good processor, like a relatively decent graphics card will like be just fine for a while. Like Benjamin said, he owns. Oh, he said he'd get a 1070 or 1060, because the 1080 is a bit overkill for the vast majority of games you're going to play. Like, it's a guy like me, if you're just going to play like a couple free to play games, maybe Hearthstone, like crap like that, you really don't need a killer graphics card. If you are going to spend money, I would suggest getting a good processor. Spend a little bit extra money, get a good processor and motherboard that'll like be a good platform for upgrading into the future for a few years. That money will have pay a lot better dividends than spending a whole bunch of money on a graphics card. Because like that, yeah, like WM suggested like an Intel Core i5. I actually, like I said, I wanted to spend. It was tough to come up with the money at the time, but I went ahead and got an i7 6700K, because I just wanted to buy a processor and not have to F with it for, the next 5 years. And like I was doing like some video rendering and stuff like that, and it was a good processor for all that stuff. Obviously good for gaming. And even like this, like I do like a little bit of streaming here on YouTube and render a couple videos and stuff, and yeah, a good processor is better to have than a killer graphics card and a mediocre processor. Yes, I'm still here, Lee. I've been rambling for a little while. I didn't really have much to do this afternoon. What time is it? Yeah, hell, it's 2:30. I could ramble for another hour and a half. I'm fine. Like I said, I'll probably cut the tail end of this video off. It's like totally off topic, but yeah, we were just talking about some stuff. Yeah, like is that Bjorn? I always try with names, but I frequently fail. This is still one of the shorter streams at this point. We've only been going for 3 hours. But no, like I said, we're pretty much done for today. Check it out, so sexy. But yeah, tested the Rustable Iron out. I'll get to use these Thursday. Those will be pretty cool. And I could, if you saw any of the tokens I printed before, I could go back and like put a symbol in the file. This is just basically like a gear shape that's flat on both sides, because I just wanted like some generic tokens to use, like personally. But like for this game, For this game, like I plan on putting like the faction symbols and stuff in these tokens for the various factions and stuff. No, like Aaron said, I had kind of wanted to do the firmware. What? I guess we could talk about that for a little bit and do some preparation for Thursday, because I would kind of like to do that Thursday. So it's been a while since I messed with any of that stuff. Apparently, that's on GitHub. If I recall someone saying that on the RepRap wiki. So here we're on the wiki. I don't think that's the right thing. So, okay. So what... I guess somebody was saying that I could edit the hex files for the firmware directly in GitHub. I've never done that before. Never actually done that before. But that would be convenient, obviously. Those glasses look like martinis. Yeah, I need to clean those. I guess I do need to put my wash. I can just throw that oxidizing stuff away, but I need to clean the wash one up and have it put back before my wife gets home. With the can I use the Arduino IDE without an Arduino? Because I do not have an Arduino. Or is that... Yeah, I don't know. I've never done it before. That's why I just haven't, like, I wanted to jump in the Slack group a couple times this last week, and I just didn't have the time. Like, there's been so much stuff going on. Oh, and then yeah, the first January 1st, we got to spend a few hours at the emergency room because my daughter fell and bit through her bottom lip completely through it. So that was fun. Luckily, it was pretty bad. It was pretty gruesome, but like most of the kind of heinous cut was on the inside of her lip. So luckily it did go the whole way through, but luckily there's only a tiny little, like, maybe 1/4 of an inch cut that came through on the outside. So hopefully she won't have any scarring since she's so young. But yeah, that was pretty gnarly. I had done it. I don't know if any of you guys have done that. I had bit through my bottom lip like 4 times as a kid. Like, luckily, that's why the biggest thing I was worried about with her was like the scarring, because like I said, I did that as a kid, and it's just fortunate that, like, as an adult, I have like facial hair, so you can't really see the scarring. But yeah, being that she's a little girl, like I don't want her to have to like deal with facial scars. Like, that sucks. But hey, what's up, Joel? You're catching the tail end here. We're just kind of... I probably should have logged off like an hour ago, and I'm just sitting here talking. Because we're kind of... you see, we've got a mess here. I've got minis from a game and stuff that aren't relevant to anything. But we were doing some... where's my controls here? We were doing some like painting and washing on some like tabletop terrain and stuff. We made our own wash and was messing with some of the Rustable Iron PLA and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I probably should have logged off like an hour ago, and I'm just sitting here talking. But yeah, surprisingly, they don't really do anything if you bite through your lip. As long as it stops bleeding, there's really not a whole lot they do, because like I kind of assumed that before we even went to the hospital. they're really not going to do any stitching, because the stitching, like if they would stitch her lip, that's likely to leave as bad or worse scarring than the actual cut itself. So yeah, hopefully it all heals up. Oh, thanks, Joel. Oh, have you done some printing with the Proto-Pasta Iron PLA? Actually, if you had a video, I just haven't happened to see it. I've seen most of your other videos though. But yeah, it seems really cool. I know you weren't here earlier, but these are... I guess I have like 13 of these little tokens. They're just like little gear shapes, basically. But the thing I like most about it is the just the feel of them. Like these little pieces, they just have such a great feel. Like I was trying to describe it to the guys watching, and they kind of feel like slightly metallic poker chips. Oh, if you did, do you mind if I pick your brain a little bit? Obviously, I'll go check the video, but just to ask you here, two questions. How much rust effect did you end up getting on it? And like, what did you do exactly to do it? Like we used on Proto-Pasta's site, they have a video that they linked, and we used basically the same mixture they used. That was basically 8-to-1 hydrogen peroxide and vinegar with a little bit of salt, and then like I said, it worked okay. Like these, if you compare them to the pieces that we didn't do anything to, like they're obviously oxidized a bit, but I think like I had planned on doing some testing tonight and tomorrow, and then we were going to do, since I have all these little pieces, I have a bunch of like great little samples to try some different techniques on, but I know someone did suggest, I think it was muric acid. Oh, okay, you soaked some paper towels and then wrapped it in those. Yeah, I'll definitely check out your video, because as far as like printing, this stuff's great because it just essentially prints like regular PLA. So that definitely makes me love it, because you don't really have to do anything special. Like obviously there's the potential that it's going to wear your nozzle a bit. But like I mentioned earlier, even if you couldn't rust it all that aggressively, just the feel of little token pieces like this is enough for me to justify using this material for some things, because they have a little more heft to them than regular PLA, and you could actually these only have 10% infill. Like we could actually go to 100% infill, and they'd have a nice weight in the hand for certain things. But even as is, they feel pretty great to me. But now I'll have to check that out. I actually do. I actually do have I got two of the... I couldn't justify buying a whole roll without testing it a little first. But I actually do have a sample right over here of the stainless steel PLA. I got this and that at the same time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. There's just so many, especially like GIFs and stuff. There's so many things you could print out of these two materials and do a little bit of like post-processing on them. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, that a lot of things you print and it feels like plastic. You know what I mean? It's plastic. It's PLA. It's even if you print in ABS or PETG or whatever. And it just kind of like feels like that, and people kind of know it's 3D printed. But this stuff, it just feels different. This feels like almost like a cast material. So like you could actually give gifts to other people that have 3D printers with some of this material, and they'd be like, "How'd you do that?" Or more likely, I've got to try that myself. But yeah, I should print some of these with 100% infill. They would feel really great. They already feel great, so I'd imagine they'd be super awesome at 100%. But now I have to check that video out, because the only thing... I'm still like totally happy with it, but the only thing that I think there's room for improvement on is the oxidizing. Like I said, you can obviously see a difference. Like those are the two that we oxidized and the two that we didn't, and it's pretty obvious there's a difference in kind of the patina there. But It's not quite as aggressive as some of the pieces I've seen other people do. So I'm anxious to try some different techniques to try to really kick it up a notch. Yeah, I imagine the longer you let it set, I think these probably only sat because I actually just dipped them. How I should just throw another one in there. I actually just dipped them in the mixture and then let it sit and air dry for a while. I'll set another one there for test purposes and see what it looks like in a couple hours. I guess I could. Yeah, I'll throw another one. I'll throw the other one in the solution and let it sit there for a while. Like I said, it's the nice thing about having all these little pieces. I actually have a bunch of little pieces to test. So yeah, no, like I would be fine even if they get like fuzzy. Because these, like the kind of the gnarlier they look, the better for what I'm using them for. But no, thanks for stopping by, Joel. I'll definitely, it's probably while I'm sitting here doing some other stuff. As soon as I drop stream, I'll probably check that video out because I'm anxious to get a little more out of these. So thanks for that. Like I said, I've watched a ton of your videos, but sometimes it's hard to watch everything, and it's easy to overlook stuff. So I'll go seek that out now that I need it. But yeah, thanks, man. Like I said, I should probably go too. I've been rambling for like an hour and 20 minutes now. We're not really being productive anymore. And I could probably be doing something on eBay. Did you just link us a picture on your computer, Meester? I don't think that works like you think it does. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that. Unfortunately, it would be pretty handy if it worked like that, but no. And then, like I said, Aaron, it probably won't be today, but tomorrow I don't know if Aaron's still here. He might not even be here, so I might be talking to myself. But if you are here, Aaron, I'll jump in the group tomorrow, and we'll do a little bit of prep work. So I understand editing the firmware and stuff a little better, and then we'll try to cover a little bit of that Thursday. And then if all goes well, that's something that I want to do a standalone video on, to have like a nice little like very concise reference video. Yeah, it would be nice because I don't want that to be buried in like a 3-hour stream like this is going to be. But yeah, we'll try to do a little bit of prep work on that and get that ready for Thursday. And maybe that's because depending on how much time I have Thursday, I might not have a whole bunch of time. So that might be one of the only things we end up doing Thursday. But I would like to do that. I know you had said you had, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had said you had mentioned to Prusa about changing the clicks on the knob or whatever. Because that'd be really nice if they'd address that and just kind of fix it. But if they don't, I'd like to fix it myself. Because it's pretty irritating. I did it the other day again. Luckily, it was only like an hour and a half print, but I had two versions of the print side by side, and when I went to select the one, it had shifted again and selected the wrong one, so I printed the wrong file. But yeah, I can't be the only guy that's doing that. That has to be a relatively common problem. I can't tell. I threw this one. I do have the one sitting over there, and it's oxidizing a little bit more. But I think the one in the dish is oxidizing more. Seems to be. But yeah, I'll do some tests on these. I want to rust the living hell out of these. Because I think that's what... I would assume most people, that's what they want to do with these. Is just rust the living hell out of them. To get that really kind of unique, super old-looking effect, which I think is pretty sweet. But yeah, guys, I've been talking long enough. As always, thanks for hanging out with me. Anybody that hasn't subbed, consider subbing if you were into anything we did today. This was, like, doing painting and stuff isn't generally what we do, but try to mix it up. There's so much different stuff involved with 3D printing, and try to touch on a lot of it. There's so many good, like, 3D printing channels. Like, Joel was in here earlier. There's so many guys that do stuff on their channels, and I don't want to just be like another. I don't want to be Joel 2.0 or anything like that. So we're gonna try to mix it up. Try to get some different perspectives on some things from time to time, and just try to do things that are related to 3D printing, but are kind of tangential in a way. So thanks for hanging out. I know I said this last week and then didn't end up streaming Thursday, but I don't have any. I guess you can't, like, predict out of the ordinary events, but I'm not planning to have any, like, strange occurrences this week. So, barring any unfortunate events in my life, we will be streaming Thursday. And like I was talking to Aaron about, we're going to try to cover. There's a few minor issues that I have with the firmware on the MK2, and we're going to try to maybe, like, address one or two of those issues and get them sorted out. Couple pet peeves I'd like to address, but and I'll give you guys an update. I'll do some experiments with these with oxidizing these magnetic little print things. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you. Let me find my button. We'll see you Thursday, guys. Thanks.